Chapter 349. Defay's datasheet was very comprehensive. Not only was there a name on it, but there was also a detailed data analysis behind the name. There was intimacy, favorability event analysis, hand-holding success rate, and milestone records. There were two values for intimacy. One was for the girl's relationship with Naruto, and the other was for Naruto's relationship with the girl. The favorability event analysis was the record of the girl's feelings for Naruto, as well as the record of the time when Naruto had feelings for the girl. Each was very detailed, and was an important part of the calculation of the intimacy value. The success rate of 1,000 hands was the result of the comparison of the intimacy value of the two sides. The milestone records included several levels of physical contact. This was the summary of the knowledge obtained by Defay from other books. Level 1, 2 people alone, 2 people holding hands, 3G kissing, 4 people rolling in the sheets, 5 people getting married, and 6 people having a baby. There were many groups for this project, but most of the girls' names were left alone. There weren't many who were holding hands or suspected to be holding hands. Most of them were in contact with each other during training, hugging and kissing. Hinata's name was lit up. Note: from Sakura Haruno's narration. Therefore, to sum up, the one with the highest intimacy value and the highest hand-holding success rate with Naruto was Hinata. The score Defay calculated was 65. Note: brotherly intimacy. Defay's intimacy value. Greater than 0 but less than 10, stranger. Note: 0 is a disgusting stranger, 10 is a friendly stranger. Greater than 10 but less than 20, acquaintance. Greater than 20 but less than 30, friend. Greater than 30 but less than 40, teammate. Greater than 40 but less than 50, best friend. Greater than 50 but less than 60, intimacy. Greater than 60 but less than 70, love. All 70 and above could be called pa. This value. It was unknown where Defay learned it from. However, there was a very questionable book beside Defay, Intimate Paradise. But there was another girl whose value was not low, 04. 64 points. To be precise, this score did not come from Naruto. Therefore, Defay had been struggling with whether to categorize this girl here. Defay's thoughts moved and fell on 04's name. A video popped up. It was the hot spring in 04's private martial arts arena. On the training field, 04 and Naruto were sparring. In the video, the two of them were locked in a fierce battle, and 04 was easily pinned to the ground by Naruto. However, 04 suddenly changed the gravity, catching Naruto off guard. 04 instantly suppressed Naruto. Their bodies swapped positions in the weightlessness, and then the gravity suddenly increased. 04 rode on Naruto's body, but because of the gravity acting on them, due to inertia, 04's lips kissed Naruto. If this was an accident, then Big Fatty wouldn't have been able to capture this data. The calculation formula used by Big Fatty to capture the data was the moment the girl beside Naruto had a favorable impression of Naruto. Condition 1: opposite sex. Condition 2: the opponent's soul power fluctuation is abnormal. Thus, there was a follow-up after this. The moment their lips parted, 04 retracted the gravity and looked up. But then 04's lips pressed down again. The most shameful thing was that in the video, Naruto smacked his lips as if he was eating dessert. The Naruto in the video wasn't Naruto's body. It was Nine Tails, but it was using Naruto's body. Big Fatty was very conflicted. Should it attribute this scene to Naruto? The body was Naruto's, right? Then the one 04 saw was Naruto, so the favorable impression and kiss was also Naruto. But the one controlling the body was that damned fox. Earlier, when Naruto was controlling the body, 04 didn't show any abnormalities. From this perspective, it wasn't wrong to say that it was Nine Tails. Big Fatty stared at the video with round eyes. It raised its paws and tapped its custom-made sofa. Big Fatty's custom-made sofa was a bit interesting. It had a backrest, but instead of a table or chair, there was a stick that could be held. How about making a separate group for Nine Tails and Naruto? Big Fatty thought about it and finally rejected this idea. If it was just one, it would be a bit difficult to make a list. If there were more in the future, it wouldn't be too late to make a list. Big Fatty added a note under 04's name. and signed the 2 words, 9 Tails in red. That's right, should I tell boss about this? Logically speaking, it should tell him, but if it did, boss would know that it was spying on boss's private life. It didn't know what would be waiting for it. It was very likely that its authority would be restricted. It might even have its 5-star identity card revoked. If it lost its 5-star identity card, it wouldn't be able to spy on boss's private life anymore, so it was better not to tell him. Thinking this, Big Fatty turned off the system in satisfaction and pulled up the video of Windflower Snow. In the video, Windflower Snow was changing clothes. It was just a coat. However, Big Fatty wasn't looking at this. It was looking at the snow sculpture beside Windflower Snow. Big Fatty stared at the snow sculpture with bright eyes. At this moment, a pop-up window popped up. It was a form. The name on the form was, My Heartbeat Statistic Table. There was also a string of names on it. Among them, there was a column named Big White. The red heart flickered, and the heartbeat index jumped from 65 to 66. Big Fatty turned around to look at the number, and was a little shy. Then, it turned back to look at the valiant snow sculpture. 67. 68. Boss, I think I'm in love. At this moment, a smaller, gray snow sculpture appeared on the screen. The data on the other name on the statistic table changed. 66. 67. In front of the data was written Little Gray. At the same time, Big White's data fell from 68 to 67. Big Fatty looked at the falling data with heartache. The bad thing is that I have to choose one of these two. Boss, what should I do? As a bird, it's okay to be a little unfaithful, right? But I'm betting my fate on you, boss. If boss only chooses one person, I'll only choose one bird. If boss has a bunch of wives, I'll be the mother of the world. Big Fatty spoke as if he was full of pride. At the same time, it looked at the long list of names on the list. There were so many of them that it didn't pale in comparison to Naruto. At the same time, Naruto, who didn't know that he was being used as a guide to his bird life, accepted the mission to the Eastern District. Beside him, the seahorse said earnestly, Why do you have to do this? Being a virgin isn't a pride, it's a shame. Every day that you maintain it is another day that your life is stained even more. Naruto didn't even turn his head. Then let me go down in history with infamy. The seahorse shook its head. Silly child. The world of boys and men is different. It's a completely different world. Why do you always refuse to enter it? Chapter 350. The East District of the Country of Rain. The collapsed underground sewer was being dredged. Naruto used earthmeld to prop up the original collapsed area, and the workers seized the time to repair the pipes that were broken due to the collapse. Underground, it was really an excellent place. Naruto was very satisfied with this place, especially after his chakra propped it up. He no longer had to worry about Tendo Pain noticing his little movements. As for the issue of chakra's aura, Naruto tried his best to control the original spiritual power of this body to synthesize chakra. It wasn't easy to do this. First of all, the most basic thing was that the original owners didn't reject him. He didn't know if it was because Naruto took care of the little pufferfish, but the original owner's spiritual power's rejection of him was getting lower and lower these days. When I get home today, I have to make some delicious food for the little dolphin. With this thought, Naruto found that the wisp of spiritual power he controlled was easier to control, and it even took the initiative to cooperate. Naruto's spiritual body looked at the sleeping mass in the spiritual world, which was the soul of the original owner of this body. He asked suspiciously, Are you still retaining your consciousness? That mass of soul power was motionless and playing dead. Naruto couldn't make up his mind. He scanned the soul with his consciousness and didn't find any reaction from the other party's consciousness. In other words, there was no active thought. To put it simply, this situation was the state of being an idiot who didn't know anything. But Naruto had the illusion that the other party's consciousness still existed. Naruto stared at the soft mass of soul power, staring. The other party didn't respond. Or, protecting his sister had been integrated into this brother's instinctive consciousness? Just like the instinct to survive. If that was the case, then he really was a great big brother. Forget it. Whether your consciousness is still there or not, I'll help you take care of your sister. Naruto made a promise. The last bit of rejection of this body disappeared. It felt as if he was more than 3,000 meters above sea level and had difficulty breathing. And suddenly an oxygen tank fell from the sky. That was a clear and relaxed experience. As long as Naruto wanted to, he could even use this body as his second body. It could be said to be a perfect possession. The only thing left was to kick the original owner out of the room. Of course, Naruto didn't intend to take over this body. After all, this body was very weak and couldn't be compared to his Uzumaki bloodline. Naruto shook his head with a wry smile and sighed. You're really willing to give up anything for your sister. Even this country is nothing compared to your sister, right? That lump of soul power didn't give him any feedback. However, Naruto appreciated this kind of person. In contrast, he didn't like people like Itachi. Perhaps this was selfishness? In any case, Naruto felt that it was wrong for Itachi to wipe out his entire clan. At least he wouldn't do that. If it were him, he would have led the Uchiha clan to take down the Wood Leaf. As for Itachi's evaluation of the Uchiha clan, he said that the Uchiha clan is not broad-minded enough. Naruto's idea is that as long as the leader is broad-minded enough, it will be fine. Isn't it? Naruto's consciousness returned to what he was going to do, and the perception barrier expanded underground. It only expanded in the range of Naruto's chakra. God knows if Pain, Nagato, or the other members of the Akatsuki have other means of detection, so it's better to be careful. In the perception barrier, Naruto found the thing he was looking for, the rats. Naruto's plan was to control the local small animals of the East District to explore the East District. This plan can be said to be extremely careful. The selection of rats was so strict. It can be seen that Naruto's importance to the Akatsuki has reached a level that can't be added. A large nest of nearly 100 rats was controlled by Naruto. They scattered, wandering in the sewers of the East District, and began to explore the East District. At the end of the day's work, night fell. Naruto used today's salary to buy pork, vegetables, and fruits. Why did he use today's salary? Because most of the money in this body was originally in the bank card, and Naruto didn't know the bank card number. His sister also didn't know. This is awkward. When he returned home, as soon as the door opened, his well-behaved little pufferfish sat at the door and waited for a long time. Welcome home. The little pufferfish's voice was very sweet, and Naruto felt warm in his heart. Pufferfish, I said you don't have to sit at the door and wait for me. Naruto rubbed the little pufferfish's head lovingly, and the little pufferfish stretched out her hand. Gift. Gift. What gift? Is it a birthday? Or an anniversary? But he didn't prepare anything. Naruto was quick-witted. Let me put the things in the kitchen first. I bought a lot of vegetables today. I'll make something delicious for you in a while. Fortunately, the little pufferfish was well-behaved and didn't ask. Naruto quickly asked Gurney in the spiritual network. What should I do? What gift should I prepare? Gurney suggested. How about giving her a pair of virtual reality glasses? With those things she won't be bored. The virtual reality glasses were directly connected to a person's spiritual power, similar to an illusion that allowed people to watch virtual reality movies. Currently, it was only distributed in the Snow Country and hadn't been promoted to other countries. This seems like a good idea. If the virtual reality glasses are equipped with a perception barrier, then the little pufferfish can even replace vision. Thinking of this, Naruto was a little moved. But the little pufferfish wasn't a ninja, and she didn't have chakra in her body. This can be solved through the spiritual network. But strictly speaking, the perception barrier can't be used, because it might be noticed by the Akatsuki. Then, it can be replaced with an electronic device. Thinking of this, Naruto shouted in the spiritual network's public chat area. Someone come and make something for me. Naruto immediately explained the little pufferfish's situation. And Naruto's request was to link the virtual reality glasses and the electronic camera together. The technology needed didn't need to be developed. After all, when solving the storage problem of the spiritual network's database, they had already developed the technology of transcoding runes and electrical signals. Now they just needed to do it directly. After Naruto issued the task, Gurney suggested, I think the glasses should be changed into a collar, a lace collar. This way, not only will it not look out of place, but it will also look very cute. Naruto was a little surprised. Huh? I didn't expect you to use your brain. I originally wanted to change it to earrings. Gurney rolled her eyes and said, Earrings need to have ear holes. How can the little pufferfish have them? Besides, I've always used my brain, okay? Really? Okay. I admit that you've always used your brain, but you're too lazy to use your body. Hurry up and get to work. I want to see the finished product when I'm cooking dinner. The extremely capable monsters of the snow mountain started to move. This task was extremely simple for the girls who often developed small puppets to fight each other. While Naruto was cooking, the girls each made several versions of the lace collar. Little Gurney made a snow-white one. Gurney made a black lace one. Big Gurney made a pink one. Naruto watched the girls work through the video chat system, but he couldn't help but interrupt. Just make one collar or whatever. Can you guys make the camera first? Big Fatty said, We have a ready-made camera. The Heavenly Eye one that I developed a few days ago can be used directly. Little Gurney complained, What Heavenly Eye one? I think it's more like Peeping Tom one. It actually took out all the snacks I hid. Humph. Big Fatty wanted to say that it found the snacks, but it was actually a 5-star authorization. As for the Heavenly Eye one, that was just a cover. Big Fatty was secretly pleased with himself, smart as I am. At the kitchen door, the little pufferfish's stomach growled a few times. Big brother, when will dinner be ready? Where's my present? Chapter 351. At night, the rats went out. At the sewers and the streets and alleys, pairs of sneaky eyes observed. Squeak, squeak. Squeak, squeak, squeak. A small rat squeaked a few times, but it was kicked back by a large rat beside it. It turned around and glared at the rat with a fierce gaze. The meaning was self-evident. When translated, it was saying, Squeak your mother. Give me a F***king squeak. Naruto naturally saw this scene, and for a moment he felt very complicated. These rats could be said to be under his control, but they could also be said to be under his control. It was somewhat similar to the shadow clone technique, but it was used on the basis of a spirit body, and did not require chakra. It was formed by the separation of soul power. To put it simply, it was the spirit clone technique. It could also be considered a clone. But for a clone to beat up another clone, just thinking about it made his balls hurt. What was even more painful was that when the large rat was about to sneak out, the small rat that was kicked back became angry and bit the large rat's tail. Then a big battle between the two rats took place. Then, the two rats encountered other rats during their fight. Sometimes just looking at a group of rats could trigger a fight. How could he let a hot-tempered person like this get bumped into so suddenly? There was no need to say who was looking at whom. And the group of rats started fighting each other. Naruto, who was cooking, was very angry. In his agitation, he crushed the wooden handle of the wok. The moment his hand touched the iron pistol in the wooden handle. Hot! Naruto's shout startled the little pufferfish. Big brother, what happened to you? Naruto looked speechlessly at his scalded hand. Chakra flowed in his palm to relieve the pain. He replied, It's nothing. My mouth was scalded by meat. The little pufferfish giggled happily. On the other side, Naruto ordered all the rats through the mental link. No fighting. Only then did the group of rats stare at each other with their beady eyes and begin to work. The East District of the Rain Country was indeed similar to what the seahorse had said. The streets and alleys were pitch black, and there were few lights on. Using the word barren was not an exaggeration, but a more accurate term would be ghost city. A city without people was just like a university town during the holidays in his previous life. Only ghosts would patronize it. The rats spread out in all directions. Affected by their natural instincts, when they passed by the trash can, they would unconsciously rummage through it. Then, disappointed at the empty trash can, he turned around and left. Some of the hot-tempered rats would even kick the trash can fiercely, and then they would roll around on the ground in pain. What a joke! However, Naruto didn't interfere with the rat rummaging through the trash can. It was better this way. Keeping the rat's nature could be used as a disguise. As for the one who kicked the trash can, Naruto was a little worried that such a short temper would cause her to die from anger. The rats passed through the streets and alleys as if they were the masters of this place. A very clever mouse somehow managed to climb up the wall and found the target that Naruto was looking for through the window. In the rat's eyes, there was a bedroom under the bright moonlight. There was a black windbreaker with a fire cloud totem hanging on the wall of the bedroom. This was the attire of the Akatsuki. Then the owner of this room was obviously a member of the Akatsuki. Who could it be? Naruto was a little nervous. He was about to order the rat to leave, but he didn't expect that the rat would suddenly slam its head against the glass of the window. Then it became angry and started punching and kicking the glass. The most amazing thing was that the window was broken, and it wasn't injured. The arrogant rat successfully slipped into the room. At this time, Naruto didn't know what to do other than facepalm. The rat snuck into the room and sniffed with its nose. Then it ran with small steps. Soon it found its target on the table. It was a half-eaten bread. Then it opened its mouth and bit down on it. So, it was because it smelled food. Naruto was a little speechless. At this moment, the bedroom door suddenly opened. There was someone. Naruto's heart skipped a beat. He wanted the rat to run away quickly, but the rat wasn't afraid at all. It laid on the bread and ate it one bite at a time. This rat was courting death. It was probably going to be crippled. Naruto was already lamenting for the rat. The door was completely pushed open and a boy with long bangs walked in. The boy looked at the rat who was gnawing on his bread in a daze. He walked in and pressed his right hand on the table. His index finger knocked on the table and said, "Hey, this is my bread." The rat raised its head and glared at Dedale. Then, it hugged the bread with a vigilant look, like a dog protecting its food. Then, it continued to gnaw on the bread. The teenager knocked on the table again. "Hey, according to the rules of our Qingshui Street, those who eat the same bread are brothers. Do you think you have the right to be my brother?" And the young man roared. Naruto rolled his eyes and chatted with the rat. This guy's brain seemed really abnormal. Who was the person who came in? Under the moonlight, the boy's golden hair was a little dark. His face was delicate and childish like a big boy. Iwagakure explosion is art, Dedale. And the reason why the color was still a little dark was that the rat was originally colorblind. The world it saw had no color. But after merging with Naruto's spiritual force, the spiritual force subconsciously extracted the vitality in the cells and more or less synthesized some chakra. This changed some life forms. Naruto hadn't noticed this yet, but it was going on quietly. The rat who was eating the bread raised its head and screamed, "Squeak, squeak, squeak." Then it grabbed a piece of bread with its claws and stuffed it into its mouth. It chewed in big mouthfuls. Dedale and the rat looked at each other. The rat stared with its small eyes, but its momentum didn't lose. At the same time, it stuffed the bread into its mouth. Dedale was suddenly amused by the rat, and laughed while holding his stomach. Then he said very happily, "Well, you passed, I will cover you in the future in fuck. This is also possible." Looking at the scene in front of him, Naruto couldn't find any logical reason for it. Then Dedale took out a contract scroll, and pulled the hand of the rat who was still eating the bread and pressed it on it. The rat's hand was stabbed by Dedale's chakra, and a drop of blood flowed out. Dedale also left a drop of blood on the scroll. Ninja Beast contract completed. Naruto was stunned by the way he showed off his IQ. He could feel that there was a connection between him and Deidara. But Dedale didn't feel it. Motherf asterisk cur. Dedale wouldn't have signed him, right? Naruto's heart suddenly became uneasy. Chapter 352. Did Deidara sign him up? This was a very serious question. In the room illuminated only by the moonlight, after the big mouse stuffed all the big bread into its stomach, Deidara tried to use the psychic spell. Bang! With a bang, a burst of smoke curled up. The mouse that was too full to walk on the table was summoned to the ground by Deidara. F***ck. The mouse opened its mouth and cursed in human language. Deidara was very excited after hearing this sentence. "I knew you were not simple, but I didn't expect you to have opened your spiritual wisdom." Naruto raised the mouse's head and looked up at the big childish face, roaring in his heart. I opened your grandma's spiritual wisdom. What happened? Naruto didn't know either. At this time he was a little scared. The moment Deidara used the psychic spell, Naruto's soul was pulled out of the body of the pufferfish and entered the body of the mouse. F***ck. I can't go back, right? Naruto lowered his head and looked at the furry little claws. For the first time, Naruto noticed that these claws didn't seem to be mouse claws, because they were obviously shorter than ordinary mouse claws. Short-legged mouse? It can't be so sad, right? Naruto began to look around for a mirror, and then went over. In the mirror, Naruto's current appearance was reflected. It was a furry, chubby little guy with short legs and a flat tail. The fur on its head and back were white and gray, and its belly was snow white and fluffy. The most distinctive feature was its big eyes that were 4 times larger than ordinary mice. Naruto finally knew how this guy climbed up the high wall. This was not a F***king mouse at all, but a little flying squirrel. Little flying squirrels were also mice, but different from mice, they belonged to the squirrel family, the flying squirrel genus. Small in size, blunt mouth lips, big eyes, normal ears, thick limbs, and flat tail. Naruto recalled the records about little flying squirrels, and compared them with his own appearance. That's right. It was a little flying squirrel. The little flying squirrel did not have wings, but it could stretch out its fur and glide over short distances like a kite. Hey, as a younger brother, how dare you ignore your elder brother? Big brother my ass. Go F***king big brother. Naruto turned around and stared at Deidara with a pair of big eyes. Deidara tilted his head and pondered for a while. He then took out a bag of bread from under the table and handed it over. Do you want to eat some more? Naruto was speechless. Previously, he had already eaten bread that was 1 size bigger than his body. What the hell was he eating now? Did he really think he was a pig? No, the one who ate the bread wasn't him. It was also him. Forget it, who cares who he is? Naruto's mind was in a mess now. However, what made Naruto even more speechless was that when the milky fragrance of the bread entered his nostrils, his saliva started to secrete at an uncontrollable rate. At the same time, his stomach started to growl. What kind of stomach was that? This kind of appetite was too abnormal. Could it be that this mouse was a primordial mutant? Naruto probed the little flying squirrel's body and quickly found the problem. At that moment, his mental strength was uncontrollably fusing with the life force in the mouse's body cells, continuously producing chakra. Growl! His stomach growled even louder. Naruto had no choice but to snatch the bread from Deidara's hand and stuff it into his mouth. After eating the bread, not only did his stomach not feel better, it became even hungrier. Thus, Naruto dove into Deidara's drawer that was filled with delicious food, and began to stuff himself. However, these foods with extremely low energy seemed to be unable to satisfy his needs. Naruto tried to control his mental strength that had gone out of control, but it was to no avail. As long as his spirit was in this body, he would produce mental strength with just a thought. What should he do? The little flying squirrel's cells did not have much life force that could be extracted. If this continued, he would definitely die of old age. At that moment, Naruto could not be bothered with the fact that Deidara was able to summon him over using the psychic technique. If the little flying squirrel died, then his spirit would have no place to hide? Wouldn't he be exposed? At that moment, some messy images suddenly flashed through Naruto's consciousness. There was a dark hole in the wall, a clean trash can that did not even have a feather, and a huge moon in the sky. Were these the little flying squirrel's memories? Naruto's consciousness landed on one of the images. That image moved, and at the same time, the other images also moved. More and more images appeared. However, the strange thing was that these images had a pulling force. As long as Naruto's spirit approached, it would pull at Naruto's spirit. In a moment of carelessness, Naruto's arm and most of his body were pulled into the carriage. Naruto was shocked and hurriedly pulled his body out. After pulling his body out, his spirit was far away from the images and disappeared after being sucked in. Naruto tried to raise his hand and touch it again. The moment his spirit touched the images, the pulling force appeared again. At the same time, Naruto noticed that the images were not memories at all. They were images transmitted by the 100 rats outside the house through the mental link. Naruto pulled his hand back again. Could it be that he could use the mental link to enter another rat's body? But what if that was not the case? You still want to eat? Dedale stared at the little flying squirrel in the drawer. In the blink of an eye, Naruto had already eaten all the delicious food in the drawer. Naruto noticed that Deidara always ended his speech with a hum sound. What kind of weird habit was this? Wait here, I'll go find something for you to eat. Dedale rushed out. Naruto's consciousness sank into the little rat's spirit world again. Should he give it a try? Naruto gritted his teeth and pressed his hand on one of the images staring at the moon again. The pulling force came. This time, Naruto did not resist and his spirit was directly sucked in. The next moment, a big moon appeared in front of Naruto's eyes. He succeeded. He had successfully transferred to another body. Then, Naruto's heart gave birth to a bold idea. Could he travel through the mental network? He had never tried this before. Brother! What's wrong with you, brother? Get up quickly. The little pufferfish's voice seemed to come from a very far place. Naruto noticed that it was one of the images in the mental link. Then the place where this image was connected to was the pufferfish's body? Naruto went in. The next moment, he returned to the pufferfish's body. The little pufferfish was still calling him in his ears. Naruto opened his eyes. There was a smell of a burnt pot in the air. F***ck. My braised pork ribs. F***ck. Naruto immediately stood up. What braised pork ribs? It was pitch black inside the pot. It was already burnt and smoking. Brother, are you okay? A good pot of pork ribs was wasted just like that. Naruto's heart was filled with sorrow. He replied, I am fine. I just felt a little dizzy just now. The little pufferfish was stunned, and then immediately put on a straight face. Brother, tell me the truth. Did you not prepare a gift for me and want to act shamelessly? Naruto. Chapter 353. He poured away the pork ribs in the pot, then restarted the fire to make another pot. Naruto took care of the little pufferfish. On the other hand, he contacted the girls who were making virtual reality callers through the spiritual network. Gurney, set up a visual connection with me. Gurney gave Naruto access. Naruto tried pressing his spirit body on the visual connection, but the suction force did not exist. Naruto tried to squeeze his spirit body into the spiritual network, but he did not manage to squeeze in. Awkward. Naruto then tried the images sent by the mice. The suction force was still there. Could it be? Was it because of the spiritualization technique? It was very likely. Naruto was thinking about it when the images in the spiritual world dimmed. Naruto was shocked. He started to investigate what had happened. He realized that the other mice also had the phenomenon of chakra being produced by the fusion of spiritual power and vitality. As for the few images that disappeared, they were all due to excessive life force extraction and death 5, 10, 20. The images started to fade. Naruto did not have time to react. In less than a minute, only one mouse was left. It was the little flying squirrel. The little flying squirrel was not in a good condition either. Naruto's heart sank again and again as those images extinguished. At this moment, Dedale ran back with a pile of things in his arms. The funniest thing was that there was frozen meat inside. The frozen meat was cold and hard. The little flying squirrel pounced on it and started to gobble it up. Naruto originally thought that the little flying squirrel was about to die, but miraculously, the little flying squirrel's survival instincts made it swallow continuously. The food entered its stomach, and with the enhancement of chakra, its stomach quickly broke down the food. It consumed and replenished at the same time, reaching a balance. However, Naruto could tell that this balance was only temporary. When the little flying squirrel stopped eating, the balance would be broken. However, when the little flying squirrel chewed on the frozen meat, its vitality began to increase. At the same time, in Dedale's eyes, the little flying squirrel was moving towards the fat flying squirrel, the big fat flying squirrel, and the big fat flying squirrel. Like an inflated balloon, The little thing that was originally only the size of a fist actually grew to half a meter tall after eating a piece of frozen meat the size of a cow's thigh. This is ninja beast meat. Naruto recalled what Nine Tails had said about eating toad sage to strengthen one's body. The mental energy that Naruto had left in the flying squirrel's body seemed to have finally reached a balance with the life force in its body. The little flying squirrel let out a burp and lay down on the ground with its bulging belly. She lazily rubbed her head and found a comfortable position. Then, she tiredly closed her eyes and fell asleep. As the only one out of 100 rats that survived, it was something to be proud of. Of course, Deidara should be thanked the most. Looking at the little flying squirrel, Naruto suddenly remembered that Fatty and Rascal had been controlled by him before. Then they evolved from ordinary beasts to ninja beasts. Naruto originally thought that it was Little Gunny's credit, but now it seemed that it was definitely related to him. It was just that his soul power wasn't as abnormal as it was now, and he didn't create a soul power clone to merge with their bodies. In Deidara's bedroom, Deidara was speechless as he looked at the big flying squirrel that was sleeping after eating. At this moment, footsteps could be heard from the door. Not one or two, but a series of footsteps. Hey, why are you so noisy? The door was pushed open, and a person crawled in. It was Scorpion, who had teamed up with Deidara. Deidara stood in front of the big flying squirrel and laughed. Ahahaha, of course it's for art. Scorpion walked in, and turned his head to see a big flying squirrel lying on the ground behind Deidara. He asked curiously, "Are you planning to cook meat at night? But when did your mouth become so strange and start eating rats?" Deidara corrected him. "Wrong. This isn't a rat. It's a small flying squirrel." Scorpion turned to look at Deidara and asked, "Which part is small?" Deidara was speechless. Now it seemed that this flying squirrel wasn't small at all. But it was impossible for him to agree with Scorpion's words. He retorted, "Who said I was going to eat it? This is my new little brother. Don't look at how quiet he is now. He was very fierce just now." Scorpion in the base didn't wear the fire cloud totem uniform. He directly exposed the scorpion-shaped puppet, also known as Puppet 18 Leeches. The puppet made from the killed ninja looked like a human shell lying on the ground. On its back was a ghost face, and a sharp metal tail like a scorpion's tail stretched out from the ghost face's open mouth. Fierce? Except for a lump of meat. I don't see how fierce it is. Deidara raised his hand and said, "When I first saw it, it was only the size of my fist, and then it ate until it became like this. Don't you think it's fierce?" Scorpion looked at Deidara's fist. At this time, Deidara's other hand's palm stuck out his tongue. Then he looked at the fat lump on the ground. "If that's the case, it's a bit fierce. But your aesthetic is just a so-so. You actually like this kind of furry little thing. I'm even more disappointed in your art." The two of them began to spout insults at each other. On the other side, Naruto was celebrating the little pufferfish's birthday. The birthday gift was 3 virtual reality collars, black, white, and pink. Naruto said that he didn't want so many, but the girls agreed that the little pufferfish could wear them according to his mood. As for the Sky Eye one developed by Fatty, Naruto also saw it. It was a big eyeball that looked like a bamboo dragonfly on its head. It can be driven by chakra and controlled by thoughts up and down, left and right. Of course, it could be used without chakra. After all, the eye was an electronic product. It just couldn't fly. Naruto put the virtual reality collar on the little pufferfish. The collar was successfully bound to the little pufferfish. The big eyeball rolled around and locked onto Naruto. The little pufferfish said in disbelief, "Brother! I actually saw it. I saw brother." Naruto made a shushing gesture. "Sue, lower your voice. This thing can't be seen by others." Without waiting for Naruto to finish speaking, the little pufferfish answered, "I know. Brother stole this good thing again, right?" The tens of thousands of words that Naruto had made up were all stuck in his throat. Finally, he nodded and smiled brightly. "Yes, brother stole it for Pufferfish, so Pufferfish has to keep it a secret." The little Pufferfish jumped up and hugged Naruto. Pufferfish knows that brother is the best. Pufferfish likes brother the most. Naruto's face was numb. At the same time, Fatty also had a numb face. The statistics table that Naruto had prepared for his wives jumped out again, and Pufferfish's name appeared in it. This time, Boss used someone else's body. But the one who gave the gift was Boss. Did this girl like Boss? Or did this body originally represent brother? Big Fatty was in a dilemma. Chapter 354. Late at night, the little pufferfish finally got tired of playing and went to sleep after saying goodnight to Naruto. Naruto returned to his room and lay down on the bed. 9 Llamas, Sensei, can you prepare some ninja beast meat for me? 9 Llamas lazily turned over and replied, do you want to cultivate that flying squirrel? The spiritual link between Naruto and Nine Tails has always been there. What Naruto experienced, Nine Tails didn't deliberately avoid it. Otherwise, under the rules of summoning technique, as long as Deidara uses summoning technique, my soul is likely to be summoned. So I have to find a way to strengthen the little guy's body in advance. The little flying squirrel is now Deidara's ninja beast. If Naruto can enter the little flying squirrel's body at will, then he can directly infiltrate the Akatsuki. How can Naruto let him miss such an opportunity? Nine Tails looked up at the moonlight outside the window and sighed. It's late at night. Why can't you let the fox rest? Ninja beast meat. Huh. Kyuubi suddenly had an idea as he thought of something else. Danzo's arm, the first generation cells. Naruto, why don't you try the first generation cells? Naruto was stunned by Nine Tails' sudden words. What does he mean by trying the first generation cells? However, Naruto's reaction was also very fast. He quickly understood what Nine Tails meant. You want the little guy to eat that arm? Nine Tails instigated. That's a big supplement. One bite can eat many ninja beasts. Moreover, it's so late now, and the ninja beasts outside have already gone home. Where can we catch it? Ninja beasts go home at night? Go home, my ass. Naruto rolled his eyes and was too lazy to mock Nine Tails' lousy excuse for not wanting to go out. But that's human meat, right? Nine Tails said indifferently. It's not like you can eat it. Besides, ninja beasts are trained this way. Let's give it a try then. However, could this little fellow absorb the flesh of First Eye's cells? But what was certain was that if he absorbed it, it would definitely be a great supplement. Naruto got up and went to the little pufferfish's house to take a look. The little pufferfish was already fast asleep. But to be on the safe side, Naruto took out a stick of incense and lit it in the little pufferfish's room. This stick of incense was made from the head of the butterfly shiitake mushroom that had fallen off last time. It was fragrant and could help one sleep. It was harmless to the body. After setting up the incense, Naruto quietly left the little pufferfish's room. Then he set up a simple barrier in his house. Spirit communication technique. In the next moment, along with the flower pot, the arm planted in the flower pot was summoned by Naruto. The 11-3 Tomo Sharingan on his arm were staring at Naruto. He saw Naruto pick up the knife and struggle violently. The talisman in Naruto's hand extended to his arm. Binding curse. The arm finally stopped struggling. Naruto took the knife and cut off a piece of flesh from the arm. The cut on the flesh healed in the blink of an eye and then shrank into a small ball of flesh. Naruto pinched it. It was quite elastic. At this time, Nine Tails smirked and said, actually, you can also try it. It's very nutritious. Naruto rolled his eyes and ignored Nine Tails' teasing. Then, he communicated with the little flying squirrel with his spiritual power. In Deidara's bedroom, Deidara was lying on the bed, already fast asleep. The little flying squirrel was lying on the ground with a blanket covering his body. It should be Deidara who found it. Naruto communicated with the little flying squirrel, and the little flying squirrel woke up quietly. Then, under Naruto's command, he went out the door. To be precise, he jumped out of the window. He propped up his 4 limbs and glided with the wind, looking extremely cool. After the little flying squirrel left, a strong wind blew into the house and woke Deidara up. Deidara waved his hand and was about to close the window. The little guy went out? Then this guy might come back later. What if the little guy couldn't come back now that the window was closed? Deidara glanced at the window that had just been repaired. With that guy's bad temper, he might kick the window again, right? Deidara was a little hesitant. Then he didn't close the window. Instead, he tightened the quilt on his body. He muttered to himself, "Looks like I'll have to make another key tomorrow and teach that little guy to use the front door." The little flying squirrel glided to the house opposite, then climbed onto the roof of the opposite house and glided again. Finally, he opened the manhole cover and fell into the sewer. In the sewer, there was a mouse holding a meatball the size of a ping-pong ball in his hand. The little flying squirrel walked over and swallowed the meatball into his stomach. Originally, he had planned to leave after eating, but the meatball suddenly became restless after entering his stomach. It turned into a piece of wood and was about to pierce out of the little flying squirrel's stomach. Fortunately, chakra in the little flying squirrel's body blocked it, but the little guy was in so much pain that he felt dizzy. The little flying squirrel struggled in pain. Naruto saw the scene in front of him through the visual sharing of the mouse that delivered the meatball. "Nine Llamas Sensei. It seems to be in pain." Nine Tails commanded, "Enter its body." The little flying squirrel's stomach was bulging as if it could burst at any time. Naruto did not hesitate and pressed his spiritual body on the visual sharing screen with the little flying squirrel. A suction force came, and Naruto's spiritual body was sucked into the little flying squirrel's body. Soul power spread out, and the spiritual body and the little flying squirrel's body established a connection. Pain. After Naruto successfully entered the little flying squirrel's body, the little flying squirrel's sense of pain was transmitted to Naruto. Naruto's spiritual power penetrated the little flying squirrel's stomach. This time, Naruto could clearly sense spiritual fluctuations from the meatball. This can't be Danzo's F***King consciousness, right? Or is it part of Shodai's memory fragments? Or is it caused by those Sharingans? Naruto's spiritual power rushed in. The meatball's spiritual power was not weak, but compared to Naruto's divine transformation, it was not strong enough. After a few surges, the meatball's consciousness was wiped out. The meatball finally stopped struggling, and the stick retracted, turning back into a meatball. However, the little flying squirrel's stomach seemed to be unable to digest this meatball. What was even more embarrassing was that the stick had used too much force, and it was bleeding now. The meatball could sense that the blood was stuck to it, as if a tumor had grown in its stomach. It would be difficult to take it out now. What was worse was that although the meatball had lost its consciousness, it was still sucking the little flying squirrel's blood. Shodai cells are very strange. Nine Llamas Sensei? What do we do? Nine Tails replied, "Set up a barrier, and I'll send some chakra over to try." Naruto cut the little flying squirrel's hand, and blood flowed out to replace the ink used to set up the barrier. After the barrier was set up, Naruto instructed, "This barrier's strength is average. Control your chakra, and don't use too much." Nine Tails replied, "Got it." In the next moment, Nine Tails' chakra was transmitted to the little flying squirrel's body through the spiritual link between it and Naruto. Nine Tails' chakra stimulated the little flying squirrel's body, and with the healing effect of the yang attribute chakra, the little flying squirrel's hand was healed in the blink of an eye. Shodai cells, Naruto's soul power, and Nine Tails' chakra. As long as this little flying squirrel did not die, its aptitude would definitely be monstrous. Nine Tails' chakra strengthened the little flying squirrel's body, and the little flying squirrel's digestive ability was continuously strengthened. However, the meatball was not digested. Instead, it suddenly deflated and fused with the little flying squirrel's body. A distorted human face started to form in the little flying squirrel's stomach. Naruto recognized this face. It was on Danzo's left arm. It was Naruto's face. At this time, Kyuubi urged Naruto, "Hurry up, there is still a consciousness hidden in the meat. Come and swallow it." Chapter 355. Could the other consciousness in the body be the first Naruto? As Nine Tails shouted, the face of the first Naruto on the little flying squirrel's belly became clearer. It opened its mouth wide as if it was about to shout. At the same time, the strong vitality contained in the first generation's cells began to explode in the little squirrel's body. The little flying squirrel's body began to lignify. In the blink of an eye, it began to sprout leaves. "Naruto, hurry up and devour that will." The consciousness met with Naruto. It was not Naruto who went to look for it. It was the other party who came to him. In the spiritual world, a strong vitality rushed toward Naruto. It was also filled with strong spiritual pressure. However, it was all bark and no bite. Nothing happened when the spiritual pressure hit his body like a huge wave. It was as if his face was drenched in rain. What are you waiting for? Devour him. Nine-tailed beast shouted. Naruto asked foolishly. How do I swallow it? The giant egg is the one with the ability to swallow, not me. Nine-tails frowned and said, Open your mouth and eat. Could this thing be eaten? Naruto did not know. While he was hesitating, the little squirrel's head began to lignify. At this moment, Naruto clearly felt his control over the little squirrel being taken away. To be precise, the little squirrel's life form was transforming into a plant. When the little flying squirrel's body completely lignified, it might really become a plant. He did not know if he could save it then. Naruto made up his mind. He opened his mouth wide and swallowed the wisp of spiritual power that had rushed into the spiritual world. The consciousness seemed to have felt Naruto's malice. The scattered consciousness in the little squirrel's body began to gather and turned into a blurry human face. It imitated Naruto and bit toward Naruto. A minute later, when the battle in the spiritual world stopped, the little squirrel's lignified body began to gradually return to a body of flesh and blood. At the same time, the human face on its belly began to fade and disappear. It returned to its flat, snow-white belly. How does it taste? Ninetails asked curiously. Naruto painfully dragged his pregnant belly and replied, There's no smell. This thing is tossing around in my stomach, it hurts so much. By the way, can this thing be digested? Ninetails didn't know if he could digest it or not, so he just watched the show with a smile. Ninetails found the sight of Naruto with his big belly very funny. His hand slipped, and he recorded the scene in front of him in the form of a memory card, and sent it to the Spiritual Network's public chat area. Gunny was drinking milk, but when he saw that, he spat out a mouthful of milk all over his body. Little Guanai was furious. He raised his hand and was about to tear off Big Guni's clothes when Big Guanai scolded him with a dark expression. Enough is enough, you two. Little Guinea retracted his hand and said unhappily, She was the one who started it. Look. It sprayed all over my face. It's so dirty. Gunny was still coughing violently, and the mouthful of milk made her very uncomfortable. She waved her hand repeatedly, and when she caught her breath, she quickly said, Go to the public chat area. Naruto is pregnant. The girls hurriedly entered the public chat area. Then they saw the image of Naruto with a big belly uploaded by Ninetails. For a moment, the girls laughed like crazy. Look at it secretly, and delete it after 30 seconds. The nine-tailed beast yelled furtively. The girls didn't have the time to reply. They were all holding their stomachs and laughing. 30 seconds later, Ninetails deleted the message on time. Little Guanai and the other girls quickly surrounded Ninetails and asked what was going on. Ninetails simply said that he had eaten something wrong and couldn't digest it. On the other side, Naruto held on for 5 minutes before her stomach finally stopped hurting. She stopped struggling, but her big belly didn't go down. She probably hadn't digested it yet. F***CK. Why do I look like I'm pregnant? How am I supposed to face people like this? Naruto complained. However, she was glad that she was a spirit body, and ordinary people couldn't see it. However, on second thought, Ninetails could see it. Teacher Nine Llamas my belly. Before Naruto could finish, Ninetails said with a straight face, it should be digested yet. It'll be fine after a while. It's not a big deal. Ninetails looked serious, and he didn't have any intention of mocking her at all. Naruto heaved a sigh of relief. He praised in his heart. Teacher Nine Llamas is quite trustworthy sometimes. Unbeknownst to him, Ninetails had already laughed several times in the space sealed by Ninetails. After dealing with the remnant will in the first generation's cells, the powerful vitality fused with Naruto's spiritual power and produced a large amount of chakra, which began to improve the little flying squirrel's physique. Even the little flying squirrel started to gain weight again. Like a balloon, it didn't give Naruto any time to react. In the blink of an eye, it swelled to a size larger than the damaged entrance of the sewer. It's over. I can't get out. However, the embarrassing thing was that its body was still expanding. The little flying squirrel's head reached the ceiling of the sewer. The underground sewers of the Water Nation were extremely developed and could accommodate people walking inside. Its height was as high as 2 meters. Its head hit the ceiling of the sewer. Creak! A crack appeared on the ceiling of the sewer. More and more cracks appeared, but the steel bars inside were still holding the sewer. Outside, the ground bulged and grew bigger. At this time, it was impossible for Naruto to sneak in without being discovered. As for the barrier that was set up before, it had been removed with the collapse of the wall. Naruto simply used chakra and exerted force. With a loud explosion, the giant flying squirrel finally emerged from the ground. At the same time, it burst many pipes. There were sewage pipes and water pipes. However, the giant flying squirrel's body was covered with chakra, and the dirty things couldn't splash on its body. The body of the giant flying squirrel was still growing. 3 meters, 4 meters, 5 meters, all the way up. The vitality contained in the first generation cells was completely beyond Naruto's imagination. The movement of the giant flying squirrel was not small. The rain was still falling from the sky, and Naruto knew that Tendo Pain must have sensed him. Sure enough, a minute later, Tendo Pain Yahiko, who had an orange hedgehog head, a rebellious ninja forehead protector, and a small black tube in his nose, appeared not far from the giant flying squirrel. Standing at the top of the organ-shaped tower, he looked down. The tower was more than 10 meters high, and if the body of the giant flying squirrel continued to expand, it might reach that height. Naruto was thinking, and the momentum of the body's expansion suddenly slowed down. The final height of the giant flying squirrel was 8 meters. Tendo Pain stared at the giant flying squirrel. Naruto raised his head and saw the pair of Rinnegan. Lavender eyes with big and small circles. Naruto was very calm, but Ninetales couldn't calm down and said in horror, "It's really Rinnegan. How can there be Rinnegan in this world? Did the old man leave his eyes?" Naruto laughed. "If that's the case, then these eyes are antiques." Chapter 356. Woodleaf Ninja Village. Jiraiya, who returned from Iwagakure, was lying on Naruto's rock with a green sedge in his mouth. The sun shone on his face, a little dazzling, but soon a cloud blocked the sun for him. Today's clouds were very heavy, one after another. Jiraiya's mouth moved, and the green sedge in his mouth began to wag its tail. He was thinking about something about Naruto and his dead apprentice, Minato. Now there are signs that Naruto is not dead. So, what is the body that Naruto used to escape? It was indeed a living person, and it was a person who looked exactly like Naruto. Whenever he thought of this, Jiraiya's heart was full of worry. He was afraid that Naruto would grow into another Orochimaru and begin to study taboo jutsu. Jiraiya turned his head and looked at the village in front of him. Orochimaru betrayed, the old man died. Tsunade escaped. Naruto also escaped. The familiar people, the people he wanted to protect, left the village one by one. What is left in the village now? Inheritance? Rain Country, Eastern District. A 4-meter-tall giant flying squirrel was sitting on a 2-meter-high building. A large part of the building was sunken by his fat butt. After encountering Tendo Pain last night, Konan soon came. The battle between the two sides was on the verge of breaking out. Naruto had an idea and used reverse summoning technique to summon Deidara. Then Deidara, wrapped in a sheet, explained the contract with the flying squirrel. And then, the two of them were given a very expensive ticket. There were tickets for destroying buildings, destroying sewers, and so on. The total fine was 50 million ryo. For Deidara, who didn't have any savings. It was an astronomical figure. Naruto sat on the building, and Deidara sat in the arms of the giant flying squirrel and complained. 50 million ryo. How many tasks do I have to do to pay it back? How many times did Deidara complain? Naruto couldn't remember. He just felt that his ears were going to be calloused. He said impatiently, "Don't waste time, I can pay it back myself." How much is 50 million ryo? If it's possible, Naruto can take it out at will. Deidara raised his head and glared at the giant flying squirrel's big furry face. After the flying squirrel grew bigger, The hair on his back and head turned silver gray. The hair on the lower jaw of the belly is still white, and the eyes have turned red due to the influence of the Kyuubi's chakra. It looks like a strange beauty. The red eyes are surrounded by black circles like eyeliner, which makes the originally big eyes even bigger and more demonic. At the same time, the little flying squirrel's ears became a lot bigger. They were round and adorable. I'll take your debt. Naruto impatiently raised his claws and wanted to slap Deidara off his body. But unfortunately this made S belly's stomach. His small short claws reached S hand. S's head reached. After trying twice, Naruto gave up. Son, there's no need to keep warm, right? Get off my stomach. However, Deidara had no intention of getting off. He continued to lie in the soft fur and even rubbed comfortably. Motherf***. After another half a day, the chakra in Naruto's body stabilized, and then it shrank by a third. The two of them sat there, waiting for the giant flying squirrel's body to return to normal. Last night, the flying squirrel was 8 meters tall, and chakra gradually shrank to 4 meters after stabilizing. When it shrank to 2 meters, the two of them could almost move normally. Otherwise, if they damaged any more buildings, it would be another big ticket. The two of them sat together. Rumble. His stomach rumbled when he arrived. Then, Deidara used a clay clone to buy takeout for himself. He also ordered one for Naruto. It was a meat dish, and it smelled delicious. Naruto's resentment against Deidara reduced a lot for a while. However, when Naruto swallowed the food in one gulp, his body swelled again, from 4 meters to 5 meters. This is the meat of a ninja beast. Well, the man and the mouse looked at each other, and then silently continued to sit under the scorching sun. Yahiko Tendo Pain was considerate, and because of the two of them, he stopped the rain. While waiting, Naruto didn't stay idle, and he observed the changes in his cells with his consciousness. This process is magical. It reminded Naruto of the time when he used Kyuubi's chakra. If his body was partially Kyuubi, when the number of tails reached 3 or more, his body could even grow an exoskeleton, and his body would deform. 9 Llamas, Sensei, are you formed by chakra? Do you have flesh and blood? 9 Tails lazily replied. It's not difficult to transform chakra into flesh and blood. Isn't your body that suddenly expanded now formed by chakra? By the way, the Akamichi clan in the Woodleaf also mastered this technique. Akamichi clan? Multiplication technique? Still haven't lost weight? A pair of snow-white wings gently flapped, and Conan descended from the sky like an angel. Conan was more beautiful during the day than at night, especially when the sun shone on her body. The pair of snow-white wings set off her extraordinarily sacred. It's just that, it seems to lack a little dignity, because there was a lip stud on Conan's lower lip. What a rebellious angel. Conan held a scroll in her hand and threw it to Deidara. This is the latest task. It can help you pay off your debt quickly. Deidara rolled his eyes. He knew that debt was just an excuse for work. The scroll fell in an arc, and then it was caught by the giant flying squirrel. Let me take a look first. Deidara's hand froze in the air, and his fingers twitched a few times. Naruto opened the scroll. There were a total of more than a dozen tasks on the scroll. One of them was the task of finding Tsunade. S-Class, the task required to bring her back. However, the task was marked that it had been accepted. There were also lots, flying segments, and angles after the task. This is a coincidence. Can you read? Deidara grabbed the scroll in Naruto's hand. Naruto didn't grab it again. In the end, Deidara chose a task to collect information about the human pillar force. Rokubi, the defected human pillar force of the Mist Village, Yugao. For this task, Naruto still liked it very much. If he found Rokubi, he could find a chance to merge with Rokubi's chakra. Dedale pulled out a pen from the scroll's axis and signed his name on the corresponding mission. Then he looked at the giant flying squirrel and turned to Conan. That? My ninja beast doesn't need to sign, right? Your ninja beast? This sentence sounded really awkward. Naruto grabbed Deidara's pen and retorted. Shut up. You're a human pet. He waved the pen and left 2 words in front of the flying squirrel's name. Uncle Rat. Deidara was furious. Who are you calling a human pet? Chapter 357. Hey, human pet. Let's go and do the mission. Early in the morning, the little flying squirrel, who had returned to the size of a palm, shouted. Dedale woke up with an expression of eating shit. He roared. Call me human pet again and I'll blow you away. Outside the door, Sasori's hand that was about to knock on the door stopped in midair. He was so embarrassed that he didn't know whether to knock or not. Then he heard the people in the room scolding each other. Sasori. 5 minutes later, Dedale, Sasori, and Naruto the little flying squirrel set off to leave the rain country. Hey, human pet. How do you make your clay bomb? Can you teach me? Yesterday when he was bored, Dedale showed his ninjutsu to Naruto. At that time, Naruto was sulking and couldn't be bothered with Dedale. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't help but want to learn. However, Naruto's shout was like the last spark that lit a firecracker. Dedale couldn't take it anymore. Little guy, why don't we fight? If I win, you're not allowed to call me human pet anymore. Fight with Dedale? Naruto asked himself if he had any problems, but the little flying squirrel's body could barely accommodate his spirit body. His strength was less than 100%. Unless he used the spiritual network to call chakra. How old are you? Naruto suddenly asked. Dedale was stunned and subconsciously replied, 16. Naruto the little flying squirrel put his hands on his waist, raised his neck and said in disdain, I'm only 1 year old this year. Aren't you embarrassed? 1 year old was the little flying squirrel's biological age. Naruto's words were not wrong at all. But in terms of soul, 12 plus 25 in his previous life, TSK 2 rounds for adults. Dedale was speechless. Sasori on the side looked at the scene in front of him with interest. Although this mission was to pay off the debt, in fact it was no different from the usual group activities. Sasori and Dedale were in a group, so they naturally traveled together. Dedale suddenly sped up in a fit of pique. Naruto's short legs moved quickly, tiring himself out. Dedale's speed was still climbing. Naruto looked at Scorpion for help. Yesterday, Naruto and Scorpion had already greeted each other. Naruto admired the young man who had turned him into a puppet. Senior Scorpion, can you let me hitch a ride with you? Scorpion lowered his head and looked at the little flying squirrel. The little flying squirrel blinked cutely. Its big eyes were adorable, and it even flapped its big ears. Scorpion suddenly had an impulse to turn this little thing in front of him into a puppet. As Scorpion pondered, his long scorpion tail extended from behind him and landed at the little flying squirrel's feet. Come on up. Naruto happily climbed along the scorpion's tail to its back. Sitting on Scorpion's body was like sitting on a giant turtle. When you die, give me your body. I will turn it into an eternal work of art. Scorpion's words made Naruto shudder. Dedale shouted. That's not art at all. Only explosions are art. As he spoke, he grabbed the little squirrel and placed it on his shoulder. I won't let you turn it into a puppet, Suddenly, Naruto's heart was touched. However, this feeling didn't last for more than 3 seconds. Dedale shouted. I will bury a bomb in your body. When you are about to die, you will detonate yourself. At that moment, you will turn into the most beautiful art in the world. The little flying squirrel's face darkened. Go F** King bury a bomb. Go F** King detonate yourself. Go F** King art. One wanted to turn a person into a puppet, and the other wanted to detonate a person. Was there no normal person in this team other than him? However, as he walked, Naruto also became bored. He couldn't help but ask, Human pet, how did you make that clay bomb? Dedale. You want to know? Then get off me first. Naruto propped himself up on all 4 limbs and glided down from Dedale's shoulder in an extremely elegant manner. Dedale reached into the satchel at his waist. The sound of swallowing could be heard from the satchel. Dedale's hand was eating clay. When Dedale opened his hand, a group of white ants rushed toward the little flying squirrel. Naruto was shocked, and the little flying squirrel's ears stood up vigilantly. Was he going to teach him a lesson? Chakra's Earth attribute nature change. Earth attribute chakra covered his entire body. There was no need to form seals. The human's body directly merged into the ground and escaped in an instant. When he reappeared, he was already behind Scorpion. Then he climbed all the way onto Scorpion's body. The white ant self-destruct soldiers missed, and then pounced on Scorpion. Scorpion's tail swept through the air, and a nest of hundreds of ants was directly destroyed. However, Dedale didn't care about this. In fact, the ant self-destruct soldiers were very weak under his intentional control. It was just to scare people. You know Earth attribute Chakra's nature change? Dedale stared at the little flying squirrel. The braid on her head that looked like a little yellow flag swayed in the wind. Naruto said, "Otherwise, if I don't know Earth attribute Chakra's nature change, why would I ask you about clay bombs?" Dedale said excitedly, "Do you want to learn?" The little flying squirrel's red eyes glanced at Dedale, as if he was looking at an idiot. Nonsense. However, surprisingly, Dedale didn't care about the little flying squirrel's attitude this time. Instead, he said with great enthusiasm, "I'll teach you." Then Naruto was grabbed back by Dedale, put on his shoulder and taught. To Naruto's surprise, Dedale's self-destruct clay actually turned chakra into explosives, and then integrated into the clay. Chakra can be turned into explosives. Naruto thought of Jiraiya's flame bomb. The flame bomb turned chakra into oil and then ignited. Dedale taught seriously and Naruto learned seriously. Time passed by quickly. Soon it was evening. Sasori caught a beast, and Dedale started to barbecue it. Naruto, on the other hand, was studying how to convert chakra into explosives. For this reason, Dedale also made some finished products for Naruto to imitate. In Dedale's words, turning chakra into soil is not much different from turning it into explosives, as long as the composition of the substance is changed. However, there is often a bottomless gap between theory and practice. How did you complete the clay bomb in the first place? Naruto failed many times and couldn't help but ask. Dedale turned over the oily beast leg that was already roasted on the fire rack. There was a look of reminiscence on his face. It was a forbidden technique stolen in the village. Because I needed to stuff clay into my mouth, I thought it was troublesome, so I transformed 2 mouths in my palm. Naruto's hand that was about to pick up the clay and stuff it into his mouth paused. Will he transplant 2 mouths on his hand in the future? Absolutely not. However, Naruto was still interested in learning this technique. Chakra wrapped its mouth and then stuffed the clay into its mouth, spitting it out again. The clay still looked like clay. It didn't feel soft and controllable as Dedale said. Dedale suggested, "Why don't I transplant the mouth on my hand to you? Then you should be able to learn it." Transplant a mouth. I don't want it even if I die. Naruto threw away the clay in his hand and ran away. But unfortunately, the clay was thrown into the fire, and there was a loud explosion. The strong impact pushed in all directions, and Dedale, who was in the center of the explosion, was sent flying more than 10 meters away. Fuck. Is this a success? Chapter 358. Did I succeed? Wishful thinking. When the explosion subsided, Naruto looked at his hand and found that the finished product that Deidara had given him mixed with something similar to an explosive had been thrown out together with it. In other words, it was the piece of clay that Deidara had given him that exploded. What a painful realization. Did you succeed? Deidara, who had been sent flying by the shock wave of the explosion, ran back. Deidara's perception of explosions was not weak. The moment the explosion occurred, he used chakra to protect himself. Therefore, although he looked a little embarrassed and was sent flying far away, in fact he did not suffer much injury. The little flying squirrel's big ears drooped down and he helplessly said, "No. It should be the finished product you gave me that exploded." Deidara sighed in relief in his heart. Back then it took him half a year to learn this forbidden technique. If it weren't for his dedication to art, he would have given up on the failure he experienced during this period. If someone learned it in a day, he would hang himself out of shame. Deidara stuffed his hand into the bag containing the clay. Goodgy goodgy. The mouth in the palm of his hand devoured the clay. When Deidara opened his hand again, a cute little flying squirrel appeared in Deidara's hand. It looked exactly like the little flying squirrel that Naruto controlled. Here, don't give up. The beauty of art lies in the moment of completion. For this moment, it's worth preparing for a long time. Naruto blankly took the clay flying squirrel that Deidara handed over. The little flying squirrel was very cute and lively. It could even move and intimately rubbed against Naruto's claws. Scorpion looked over and agreed for the first time. You finally said something correct. Deidara proudly said. What I said is correct. How could anyone in the world be correct? Unless it was God. After all, God said that there was light in the world, so there was light. Naruto was too lazy to ridicule Deidara's nonsense. The explosion blew up the barbecue, and Deidara began to prepare the ingredients again. Naruto came to Scorpion's side. There was one thing he had been curious about for a long time. Scorpion had transformed himself into a puppet with only the core of his body. There was no digestive system, so, did he not need to eat? After roasting a beast leg, Deidara handed it to Naruto. Naruto took the beast leg that was several times bigger than him and probed Scorpion. Senior Scorpion, this is for you. Scorpion looked at Naruto. At this time, Deidara answered first, he doesn't eat. It's a waste to give it to him. Scorpion really doesn't eat? Naruto pretended not to understand and retorted. As long as it's alive, it has to eat. Plants also need to photosynthesize. Scorpion wore a triangular scarf on his face, which covered most of his face, leaving only a pair of eyes exposed. It seemed to be full of mystery. I've already eaten. Have you eaten? That was a perfunctory reply. He had never been separated from Scorpion since hunting, so he knew if Scorpion had eaten or not. The little flying squirrel's face twisted together. It looked like he was lying to him. Scorpion hesitated for a moment, then explained. When hunting, the chakra on their bodies was devoured by me. To me, that means I've eaten. Directly devouring chakra? That worked. Since Scorpion didn't eat, Naruto took a bite of the huge roasted meat. Then, the little flying squirrel's body began to expand like a balloon. It expanded from the size of a fist to the size of a basketball in the blink of an eye, and then took another bite. It continued to expand. When it finished eating the beast leg, the little flying squirrel had already expanded to a meter tall. Deidara called out. You've become bigger. Then come and help. After tea. Late at night, Naruto opened up a space underground to rest. At first, it was Naruto leaning on the 3-meter-tall flying squirrel. After falling asleep, the flying squirrel's body continued to shrink, and then it was Naruto who burrowed into Deidara's hair. The picture was unusually harmonious. The next day, 2 people and a squirrel were on the road again. Naruto pulled the clay in his hand, and the little flying squirrel's tail wandered around in circles. Sasori-senpai, who else is in our organization? Naruto pretended to ask casually, but it was Deidara who answered first. Those people don't know, after all, our team is the strongest. Strongest? If I remember correctly, you should have joined the Akatsuki after being taught a lesson by Uchiha Itachi. Not to mention there is Pain, who has Rinnegan and Nagato behind the scenes, and Obito. Sasori didn't know if it was intentional or not, but he said, in addition to Pain and Konan, there is also Uchiha Itachi who has Sharingan. Creak. The stick in Deidara's hand was clenched into 2 sections. This guy is angry. Naruto felt interesting and asked deliberately, Uchiha Itachi? Sharingan? What is that? Sasori began to explain. Naruto should know more about Itachi than these 2 people, and even all the members of the Akatsuki combined. The information given by Sasori was nothing special, just about the Sharingan. A Kekkei Genkai has the strongest genjutsu. Deidara interrupted. That guy is just a fraud. His genjutsu can't do anything to me at all. Ignoring the proud Deidara, Naruto changed the subject and said, who else? The 3 people walked in the wilderness, and Sasori and Deidara added a few words to each other from time to time. When talking about Kakuzu, Naruto casually asked, that guy has 5 chakra nature changes. So strong. Deidara disdainfully said, what's so strong? That guy is a miser. He doesn't understand art at all. Sasori surprisingly agreed with Deidara again. That lecherous guy really doesn't understand art. The clay flying squirrel in Naruto's hand was pulled by the tail and turned in circles. Lecherous? Soon from the words of the 2, Naruto learned that when there is no task, Kakuzu often goes to the red light district in the Western District. The red light district in the Western District? After a big circle, Naruto finally got the information he wanted to know. Naruto's spiritual body pressed on the spiritual link with Fugu, and his spiritual body returned to Fugu's body. Then Naruto went to the red light district in the Western District to apply for a reception job. Perhaps because of the daytime, the shop that Deidale said that Kakuzu frequented was relatively deserted. "Little brother, is this your first time here?" A slightly plump woman greeted him, and Naruto felt a fragrant wind blowing on his face. Naruto's nose is very sensitive, not to fragrance but to herbs. Just by smelling it, he can tell that it is probably a perfume with added ingredients. Most people probably don't want to leave after entering the door. "I'm here to apply for a job." Naruto's words made the woman's smile freeze for a moment. Soon after, the smile on his face disappeared and was replaced by a look of indifference and indifference. She even yawned without avoiding arousing suspicion, and only said 2 words, "Take it off." Naruto was stunned. "Take what off?" The woman rolled her eyes. "Aren't you here to apply for a job? You have to be good at it. Do you think anyone can do this job?" Naruto almost choked to death by this sentence and explained, "I'm not here to apply for that job. I'm here to compete with the security guard." The woman rolled her eyes again. "You still have to take it off. The security guard is a security guard when something happens. When nothing happens, you have to step out." Chapter 359. Strip? Strip your head. Naruto turned around and left. As the saying goes, there are things a man should do and things he shouldn't do. Selling his body. What if he were to fall sick? Naruto hesitated for a moment. He wasn't using his body right now. Should he turn around? But since he had already left, how embarrassing would it be for him to turn around? After Naruto left, the woman rolled her eyes and mocked. "You want to earn money, yet you refuse to strip? Are you dreaming?" At this moment, a lady walked out of the house and asked, "Sister Yao, why did the customer leave?" The woman addressed as Sister Yao replied with a sharp tone. "What customer?" "A person came to apply for a job as a bodyguard, but he refused to strip. So I sent him away." The lady was perplexed. "You don't need to strip even if you want to fight a bodyguard?" Sister Yao smiled slyly. "Hee hee, I just wanted to tease that lad a little. Wouldn't it be nice if I could take a look at him?" The lady covered her mouth and giggled. "But there's indeed no need for a bodyguard. Right, the sewers are clogged. Does he know how to clear the sewers?" Sister Yao rolled her eyes. "How would I know?" The lady pointed at the door. "He shouldn't have gone too far. Go and ask him." The lady's status was clearly much higher than Sister Yao's. Even though they were chatting casually earlier, Sister Yao immediately carried out the orders given by the lady. The door opened. Naruto hadn't gone too far. He hadn't left at all. He was standing at the entrance, wondering how he should proceed with the mission. Sister Yao shouted, "Hey, do you know how to clear the sewers?" Naruto was stunned. His thoughts suddenly broke through the horizon. Which sewers? Sister Yao was taken aback. She rolled her eyes and said, "Are you dumb? Other than the sewers of the toilets, which other sewers are often clogged? Don't just stand there. Come in and tell me. If you can do this job, you'll be hired." Following which, Naruto was brought to the toilets. To a ninja, clearing the sewers, Naruto took a deep breath. "Leave it to me." Chakra's water attribute transformation. A ninja clearing the sewers. How simple. And so Naruto took up his post with glory. Since the nature of your work is rather unique, you'll be considered a part-time worker. You'll be paid daily. 500 taels a day. What do you think? Do you know who you are applying for? Naruto's heart was also very complicated at this time. He was the apprentice of one of the Woodleaf Sannin Tsunade. He is also Jiraiya's disciple. His father was the 4th generation Naruto, the legendary child of prophecy, the uncrowned king of the snow country. He was a man who was very likely to become a god in the future. Such a big shot, and you actually applied to clear the sewers? My sister is awesome. Hey, do you do it or not? Squeak. If you don't want to do it, just leave. There are plenty of people who would like to do it. How could he say no? In order to get close to Kakuzu, I'll do it. I'll do it. Thus, Naruto began his career as the #1 man in the red light district. In broad daylight, the shop was very quiet. Naruto just happened to have some free time. He used his mental link to control the mouse. He chatted with Scorpion and Deadale for a while. Most of the time, he was filled with learning clay bombs. In the afternoon at 5 o'clock, the girls started to go to work. For a moment, the shop was very lively. There were also people who took the initiative to talk to Naruto. There were also quite a few who took the initiative to seduce him. However, they were all rejected by Naruto because he couldn't afford it. Fugu, come here. Second floor. With a shout, Naruto resisted the urge to kill and went upstairs with a smile. Sister Yao pointed at the toilet. Hurry up and deal with it. That girl Ying took care of the customer in the toilet and then accidentally flushed Fat C into the toilet. Motherf ***. Only an idiot would do such a thing. The toilet door closed and Naruto used a water spout. Complete victory. When he came out again, Naruto was dumbfounded. Sister Yao was talking to a customer about the problem with the toilet. This was nothing. But that customer was someone familiar. Seahorse Fugu. The seahorse yelled. Naruto immediately turned around and closed the toilet door. He replied coldly, "You've got the wrong person." However, this kind of method couldn't fool him. Outside, Big Sis Yao and Seahorse were chatting with each other. It was all about Fugu. Everything about him being a virgin was thrown out. Sister Yao talked about how Naruto was unwilling to take off his pants during the interview. The soundproofing of the toilet wasn't very good. Naruto could hear everything clearly from inside. In the end, in order to not expose more embarrassing things, Naruto braced himself and came out. In any case, he wasn't using his face right now, so it wasn't his fault that he was embarrassed. However, to his surprise, Seahorse actually praised him. It was as if he was a celestial being. I say, bro, you finally opened your mind. Moreover, you've opened up a huge hole in your brain. But you're not a good friend. When you were young, you would always drag me down to take the blame for you. Now that there's something good, you don't even call me. At first, Naruto thought that he was mocking him. However, he didn't expect that. The next day, Seahorse also came to work. They had the same job and went to the toilet together. However, Sister Yao said that she didn't need so many people. If she wanted to take in 2 people, it would also be a salary. Seahorse was really hardworking. He didn't want to be paid and said that he wanted to give all of them to Naruto. There were so many ridiculous things every year, especially after coming to the Rain Country. However, to Naruto's disappointment, Kakuzu didn't come. Deidara's mission was progressing well. He had already found the earth spiders. It seemed that he wasn't far from finding the whereabouts of the Rokubi. During the day, nothing happened in the shop as usual. Naruto was about to find a place to take a nap. At this time, the image transmitted to Naruto through his mental connection with the flying squirrel made him jump. The flying squirrel was eating people. It was a group of Umbu ninjas from the Mist Village. They were killed by Deidara and Sasori because they bumped into them. Naruto also knew about this process. However, he didn't expect the flying squirrel to pounce on them and eat them raw. Blood sprayed and dyed its fur red, reflecting the scarlet red eyes. Beside him, Sasori and Deidara calmly looked at the scene in front of them. It seemed that they were already used to it. Stop. The flying squirrel ate the ninja's flesh and blood, and the vitality contained in it was absorbed by the flying squirrel. Its body began to rapidly expand, and in the blink of an eye, it jumped to a height of 4 meters. With another raise of its hand, a person was swallowed alive. Its body grew again. 5 meters, 6 meters, 8 meters. It was too late to stop it now. Moreover, if it suddenly stopped, it might arouse the suspicion of Deidara and Sasori. It's fine to eat. It's very nutritious. Naruto comforted himself. Then the last 2 Umbu ninjas were quickly killed by the flying squirrel. The flying squirrel's body suddenly jumped to 10 meters. However, this time, it recovered quickly. When the food in its stomach was digested, the flying squirrel's chakra began to converge and stabilize. It only took half an hour to shrink from 10 meters to 5 meters. After another half an hour, It shrank to a point the size of a fist again. Deidara opened the water bag and said, Come and wash. Is it delicious? If it's delicious, I'll kill a few more for you next time. Chapter 360. After a week, Naruto's clay bombs still didn't improve. The shadows of the trees were scattered in the dense forest, and sporadic sunlight sprinkled on the little flying squirrel's body. The trees in this forest were very tall, and the leaves weren't big, but they covered the sky, so even during the day, it was particularly dim. Under the little flying squirrel was a scorpion-shaped puppet controlled by Sasori, Leech, also known as Hiryu. Hiryu was wearing a bamboo hat on his head, and his head was motionless as he looked forward, and suddenly said, The purpose of ninjutsu is to kill the enemy, because everyone's habits, preferences, and talents are different, so there are different ways to kill the enemy. Naruto raised his head, and his eyes fell on the back of Hiryu's head. Although Sasori didn't mention his name, Naruto understood that Sasori was talking to him. Sasori-senpai, you mean? I shouldn't practice the clay bombs anymore? Naruto's perception was not low, and he immediately understood the meaning of Sasori's words. Deidara in the distance was unhappy. Hey, don't lead my ninja beast astray. Your ninja beast? Naruto's heart was sick of it, and he said without mercy, Shut up, human pet. What followed was a war of words. After a round of arguing, Naruto asked Sasori again, Sasori-senpai, what do you think I should learn? When the two were quarreling, Sasori was quietly watching from the side until Naruto asked. Sasori said, That depends on your talent. In short, learn what you are good at. Ninjutsu is just a killing technique, and when practiced to the extreme, it is a technique. Talent? What is his talent? Naruto himself didn't know, but Chakra's nature transformation seemed to be something he could learn as long as he wanted to. He also learned swordsmanship and sealing techniques. He didn't know about genjutsu, but if he wanted to learn it, it shouldn't be difficult for him. It seems to be omnipotent, but thinking about it carefully, none of them are very strong. For example, Chakra's nature transformation. Although he knows ice release and is good at it, he didn't meet the requirements to learn the last volume of the secret technique. Young attribute, medical ninjutsu and monstrous strength. He's pretty good at it, but he's definitely not as good as Tsunade. His mastery of the wind attribute should be the best, but it didn't form any attack system. The only characteristic was the storm attack that he learned from Shikaku. Swordsmanship. To be humble, he was probably in the top 5 in Wood Leaf. However, he was no match for the Sakuragi sisters. His sealing technique was pretty good, but recently, it seemed like Big Fatty was about to surpass him. What is talent? Naruto was confused, so he asked casually. Deidara unexpectedly didn't interrupt. Hearing Naruto's question, he also looked at Scorpion. Scorpion hesitated for a moment, as if he was organizing his words. Then he said, Talent is something that you can do but others can't. Or, even if they can do it, they can't compare to you. Suddenly, the little flying squirrel's eyes widened. At this moment, Naruto felt that some things had suddenly become clearer. Deidara noticed the little flying squirrel's state. When the little flying squirrel's eyebrows relaxed, he couldn't help but ask, Have you thought it through? Naruto opened his mouth, but when the words were about to come out of his mouth, nothing came out. It felt like he knew what he had to do, but he didn't know. The little flying squirrel frowned again. Wait, let me think about it first. Then the little flying squirrel sat on Feiryu's back and closed his eyes in contemplation. He could do things that others couldn't, devour Chakra's attributes. Although this ability was confirmed to be Egi's ability, Egi was in his body, so he could do things that others couldn't. He had Egi, but others didn't. So, what he should do was to devour Chakra's attributes. Devouring Chakra's attributes would make Egi grow. In other words, what he should do was to hatch the egg. In fact, Naruto was also curious about what the egg would hatch. But what about ninjutsu? Techniques were the best techniques to kill enemies. Then what should his techniques be like? His ice release could kill enemies, his wind release could kill enemies, his yang release could kill enemies, and his sealing technique could also kill enemies. air. Naruto was confused again. Naruto also thought of something else. He had originally planned to learn Earth Release's gravity-altering ability from 04. So mixed. Mixed meant that he wasn't proficient. Not proficient meant that it wasn't the best technique, so it didn't belong to him. Thinking of this, Naruto thought of the Flying Thunder God technique. Naruto had originally planned to learn the Flying Thunder God technique after the other half of Nine Tails was resurrected and fused with Chakra's Ein attribute. Naruto hurriedly shook his head and threw this thought out of his mind. What he needed to think about now was what his technique was. But the problem was he couldn't find the answer. Naruto felt like he owned all kinds of famous cars of all brands and models. Driving any one of them would be cool, but the problem was that he didn't know which one to drive. Dedale muttered to himself. It's not that hard, right? You know Earth Release. So isn't it perfect for learning Clay Bomb? Sasori ignored Dedale's words and said, haven't you noticed your own talent? Your body will grow bigger when you eat. This isn't something everyone can have. Naruto was stunned, and his thoughts turned from himself to the mouse. The body grows bigger because chakra can't be controlled. Naruto said halfway and suddenly realized, Sasori, Sama means, I can control my body to grow bigger and smaller? Sasori asked, why not? Well, if it really works, then the little flying mouse's talent is confirmed. Naruto began to try to control his body. Deidara wanted to complain a few words, but he closed his mouth. Although he wanted the little flying mouse to be the same as him, he also understood the importance of talent for a ninja. 5 minutes later, the fist-sized little flying mouse suddenly began to expand to the size of a watermelon. I seem to have succeeded. As he said that, Naruto increased the use of chakra, causing chakra to resonate with the body cells. It was a very simple operation, and it didn't even require practice because this was the most basic technique of the monstrous strength. The difference was the reaction of the body's cells. The little flying mouse's cells would increase after resonating with chakra, and this state was indescribable. It should be similar to the Akamichi clan's multiplication technique. Of course, maybe the Akamichi clan's multiplication technique also came from ninja beasts. 1 meter, 2 meters, 4 meters, 8 meters. Naruto used the spiritual network's chakra to pour energy into the little flying mouse's body, and the little flying mouse's body continued to expand. After increasing to 10 meters, there was a creaking sound from under his butt. Naruto looked down, and a red-haired boy was staring at him. Under his butt, the scorpion puppet, Feiliohu, had been smashed to pieces by his but the red-haired boy hugged his shoulders. Can't you jump down from my puppet first? Naruto pretended to be stupid. Who's this handsome red-haired guy? Well, regardless of the compensation, he should first flatter him to calm himself down. If he left a good impression, he might be able to reduce the compensation. Chapter 361. On the second day after the little flying squirrel's innate talent was confirmed, Naruto's spirit body's belly, which looked like it was pregnant, shrank a little. There was also good news, which was that Naruto's wood attribute chakra had also completed its transformation. He wasn't very familiar with it, but at the very least, after infusing the water and earth attributes into a plant with chakra, the plant wouldn't wither. That night, in Blowfish's house, Naruto excitedly summoned Butterfly Shiitake. Butterfly Shiitake's head had already grown. It was still a little tender, but at the very least, it looked like something. The summoned Butterfly Shiitake looked at Naruto in a daze. Naruto contacted Butterfly Shiitake with a fake mental link and said with a smile, "Don't be afraid, it's me." The moment Butterfly Shiitake heard Naruto's voice, it didn't hesitate and turned around to run away. It even abandoned the flower pot under it, and jumped out of the ground to run wildly. Of course, it was still caught by Naruto in the end. "Don't be afraid this time, I promise, your head won't fall off again." Butterfly Shiitake struggled with all its might. Naruto pressed Butterfly Shiitake to the ground, and infused the new wood attribute chakra into Butterfly Shiitake's body. Then Butterfly Shiitake's body began to emit a fluorescent light. Butterfly Shiitake's body went limp and it stopped struggling. It comfortably enjoyed the nourishment of the wood attribute chakra. It turned out that Naruto had indeed succeeded. How is it? I didn't lie to you, right? Butterfly Shitake's head gradually recovered under the nourishment of the wood attribute chakra. However, when the head grew to a certain extent, there was a pop. Butterfly Shitake's head fell off again. For a moment, the house was extremely quiet. After a while, Naruto carefully picked up the mushroom head that had fallen on the ground. Well, since it's already fallen off, I'll just recycle it. As he said that, he put away Butterfly Shitake's head. Then he placed Butterfly Shitake back into the flower pot and sent it back using the reverse spirit communication technique. Could it be that Butterfly Shitake's head will fall off by itself when it matures? Like a ripe fruit? Thinking of this, Naruto tried again on ordinary plants. It turned out that when Naruto injected chakra into the ordinary plants grew significantly stronger and showed no signs of withering. Then, the mushroom head of the Butterfly Shitake mushroom was actually a kind of fruit? Thinking of this, Naruto summoned the Butterfly Shitake mushroom again. Butterfly mushroom ran away without hesitation. But with the contract in place, where could it run to? It was quickly caught by Naruto. Don't move. I suspect that your head will fall off on its own once it's cooked. Butterfly Xianggu refused to listen and continued to struggle. Wood attribute chakra was injected into the mushroom's body. The mushroom's body emitted a fluorescent light, and the mushroom's head grew out at a speed visible to the naked eye. Sensing the presence of his head, Butterfly Shitake calmed down a little. But a minute later, when the head had grown to a certain size, it fell off again with a pop. This time, Naruto didn't stop and continued to inject chakra into the mushroom. The heads of the mushrooms grew out one by one like a hen laying eggs. Then they fell down with a pitter-patter sound. In a short while, Naruto had harvested 8 mushroom heads. Then he collected the mushroom heads that fell off with satisfaction, planted the Butterfly Shitake mushroom in a flower pot, and sent it back with the reverse spirit communication technique. After harvesting a wave of Butterfly Shitake mushroom heads with great medicinal value, Naruto was in a good mood. But it also made him more worried. Now he was sure that he had learned the wood attribute chakra's nature transformation. It was just that his control was far inferior to the other chakra types that he had learned. But Naruto had a hunch that after the soul power in his stomach was digested, his control of the wood attribute chakra would definitely rise to another level. This was a good thing, but it also made Naruto even more confused. In this way, the things he knew were even more complicated, and he didn't know what he should focus on. That night, Naruto thought for the whole night. Sasori's words echoed in his ears over and over again. Ninjutsu is just a technique to kill the enemy. When practiced to the extreme, it is a technique. Talent is what you can do, others can't do, or even if they can do it, they can't compare to you. Then what was his talent? Devouring chakra's attributes did bring him great convenience, but if it was just to kill the enemy, it seemed that there was no need to learn and practice every type. Nine Llamas Sensei, what do you think my talent is? Nine Tails played dumb and said, Your talent? Your talent is very good, you can learn anything. Naruto hesitated and said, But a person's energy is limited after all. Knowing everything but not being good at everything is fine when dealing with ordinary enemies, but when encountering a truly powerful enemy, it's different. Nine Tails didn't say anything. Of course, he knew what Naruto's talent was. Using a clone, he could produce an independent consciousness. The strength of this kind of spiritual power was already deified in his view. It had begun to move towards the spiritual strength of Patriarch Rikudo. In time, if he continued to merge, he might be able to create another Jubi. Nine Llamas Sensei, do you think I shouldn't be obsessed with chakra's nature change? Naruto thought of Nagato. Although Nagato borrowed the ability of Rinnegan, his ninjutsu did not develop in the direction of chakra's nature change. Geto ninjutsu, Geto reincarnation, can directly resurrect the dead. This technique should be the use of the life and death authority of this world, directly reversing life and death. Tendo Pain's Shinra Tensei, Bando Tensei are the pinnacle of gravity and repulsion, respectively, and Chibaku Tensei Shirato Pain. Naruto couldn't figure it out. After all, Shirato Pain's mechanical armor and rocket launchers don't exist in this world. But to summon from another world, it feels a bit ridiculous. Naruto felt that he had to see it first if he had the chance. Rendo Pain's ability to read memories, heart-level stealth. Nagato hasn't used it on him yet. But Naruto has been on guard. As long as Nagato doesn't catch Fugu and Little Flying Squirrel at the same time, Naruto can use the connection between the two to escape. Animal Path Pain's summoning jutsu Demon Path Seal Jutsu that devours chakra, Jigakudo's soul-devouring and reincarnation resurrection. Come to think of it, Pain's ninjutsu is quite mixed. But unlike his mixed ninjutsu, each ability of Nagato's Rikudo Pain is a function. Cooperating with each other, the power is definitely much stronger than 1+1. What about him? How about he also create an army that could divide his abilities? Nagato achieved it through Rinnegan, and he can do it through the spiritual network. Naruto shook his head again. No, this is not the talent that Sasori said. Nagato has already used the old trick, and he's just imitating it again. It's not the jutsu that he's looking for. Ninetales continued to play dumb and didn't mention Naruto's powerful spiritual force. He said, "It doesn't matter whether you're obsessed with chakra's nature change or not. What matters is why you learn ninjutsu. To kill the enemy, you should specialize in whatever is convenient for killing people." Ninetales made a lot of sense, but Naruto was still a little confused. He felt that everything was quite convenient. This is awkward. Chapter 362. Land of Lightning Kyomogakure. Outside an intensive care unit, two Yuki people peeked in through the window. In the ward, a young man was lying on the bed, and beside him was a girl who was taking care of him meticulously. The young man was Sarui, whom Naruto had once controlled. The girl was Sarui's neighbor Karu. Naruto left Sarui's body, and when Sarui woke up again he couldn't remember anything. Even the common sense of life was completely forgotten. Everything, including speaking and writing, had to be learned from scratch. What happened on the day I fainted? In Second Last sealed space, the two wooden puppets asked Second Last. However, Second Last curled up in the cage and said perfunctorily, "I don't know." The two Yuju Nin asked. Killer Bee and Ox Spirit said that they heard your call for help. Second Last continued to play dumb and asked, "Is that so? How can you take those idiots' words seriously?" The two of them stared at Second Last. It was not the first time that she had asked Second Last. In fact, she had already lost count of how many times she had asked. However, Second Last's attitude was always so displeased. Since that day, your chakra has weakened, and your body has also become smaller. The two wooden puppets stared at Second Last and explained. Second Last continued to play dumb and said, "It must be because I haven't had any dried fish lately. I've lost so much weight." Second Last Yujito, Ni pursed her lips. The hop Second Last reminded her of Sarui in the past. She said angrily, "If you don't explain everything clearly, then there will be no more dried fish in the future." Second Last remained unmoved and said, "If you don't, so be it. I'd like to have a change of taste." Although Second Last sounded relaxed, she could tell from the dark blue flames rising from her body that she was not in a good mood. "By the way, why don't you try eating something I don't like? Maybe I won't be able to resist telling you." The two Yujito natives were stunned and subconsciously asked, "What don't you like to eat?" If he could force Second Last to tell the truth, then it wouldn't be impossible for him to eat something disgusting. However, Second Last's words almost infuriated her. There were only two words, and they were repeated. "Papa." The two of them were so angry that they were speechless. "You." Second Last yawned sluggishly while the kitten rubbed its paws and changed its position to sleep. The two of them were amused by Second Last's shameless behavior. Second Last behaved shamelessly, just like Sarui in the past. "You're Sarui's elder brother, right? You said that you would help him if he needed it. Now he is lying in the ward. You are the only lead you." Second Last raised her head and opened her eyes to look at the Yujito no longer in the cage. She said impatiently, "The thing he asked me to do is not to tell you what happened, so don't bother me with this question in the future." Glaring at Second Last with their beautiful eyes, they exclaimed, "You really know?" Second Last immediately cut off the mental connection and kicked the two of them out of the sealed space. "I've said everything that needs to be said. If you keep asking, don't even think about using my power again." His attitude was very resolute, causing the two Yujito to choke on their words, making them feel very uncomfortable. However, she could also sense that Second Last was not joking. Ignoring the two Yujito no matter how indignant they were, Second Last yawned again in the sealed space. She then laid down lazily. She muttered to herself, "Humans only live for 100 years. If I offend you, I won't be able to eat fish for 100 years, but if I offend that guy, I won't be able to rest in peace in the future." Cats were very realistic animals. Between the two Yujito no longer offend the Nine Tails. She clearly chose not to offend the Nine Tails. In recent days, Second Last had also discovered that her power was continuously recovering. She thought about the words of the human imp, who said that her power would naturally recover after a period of time. It seemed that the imp was not lying. On the contrary, she didn't take half of the threats of the fool Nine Llamas seriously. She was obviously bullshitting when she said that she wouldn't return the power to him if he didn't listen. As for the other half, "I didn't report that imp on the account that we're brothers." Well, it's definitely not because I'm afraid of that fool Nine Llamas. Second Last's cat ears fluttered and she fell asleep lazily. At the same time, after passing through a large ancient forest, Naruto, Deidara, and Scorpion finally saw the sun. The pattering of the river water sounded softly in their ears, and the sun shone brightly, making the fragrance of the flowers feel warmer. Naruto, also known as the little flying squirrel, is now 8 meters tall with 2 legs on the ground. He doesn't walk like a flying squirrel, but more like a chinchilla. Deidara was sitting on his right shoulder while Scorpion was sitting on his left shoulder. That was Scorpion's request to compensate Naruto for crushing Feiliohu. As for Deidara, he crawled up shamelessly. Naruto reluctantly agreed, because he had also used Deidara as a substitute. However, Naruto also had his principles, which was that no one could sit on his head. On the left shoulder of the little flying squirrel. Oh no, it should be the giant flying squirrel. Scorpion's red hair was fluttering in the wind. It wasn't very long, and it was furry like a red dandelion. Scorpion's face was very delicate, and it was unknown if he had plastic surgery when he was made into a puppet. Naruto thought maliciously. "Senior Scorpion, I feel that I can already skillfully change my size. Can you teach me how to swallow chakra instead of eating?" Scorpion raised his head and looked at Naruto's huge head beside him. He asked curiously, "Tasting food is a kind of enjoyment. Why do you want to give up this rare pleasure?" "Rare pleasure? It would be fine if it was barbecuing ninja beasts or something. Eating humans. Don't you think it's scary when I eat humans?" Scorpion was slightly stunned. This was the first time he heard a ninja beast say such a thing. In fact, some ninjas with mental misophobia or humanitarianism will strictly order their ninja beasts not to swallow humans. However, that kind of thing is very boring in Scorpion's eyes. The weak are prey to the strong. This is a matter of course. What's the difference between eating and not eating? At least in Scorpion's eyes, there is no difference. He is the one who turned people into puppets. It's not scary, but it's not good to be seen by others. Naruto continued. "Yes, even if you are not afraid, it's not good to scare children, so I want to learn how to swallow chakra to relieve my hunger. If this trick is learned, then in the future, with 9 tails, will there be a shortage of chakra?" Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help but think, what would 9 tails taste like? Scorpion pondered and explained. This trick is actually very simple. Chakra is a combination of spiritual force and vitality. Swallowing chakra instead of eating is to decompose chakra into the original spiritual force and vitality. My body. Speaking of this, Scorpion hesitated. Then he skipped this topic and said directly, "But your body needs a little modification to establish a core that can decompose chakra." Chapter 363. Establish a core? Is it that core? Naruto thought of the only piece of flesh left in Scorpion's entire body. Naruto's heart trembled, thinking, Scorpion doesn't want to make him into a puppet, does he? That what core? Naruto's heart was a little guilty, and he couldn't help but ask with a little lack of confidence. Scorpion replied directly, "You need to add a talisman array in your body. With this talisman array, the devoured chakra will automatically be converted into vitality." Talisman array? Naruto is good at this, and he's definitely at the master level. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to establish a spiritual network. Is it easy to learn? Naruto asked pretentiously. Scorpion shook his head and said, "You don't need to learn, I will directly bury the seal in your body." Without waiting for Naruto to answer, Deidara said first, "No." Scorpion turned his head sideways and looked in the direction of Deidara across Naruto's huge rat head. Deidara said solemnly, "How can a ninja's body be handed over to others? Unless you teach him the complete ninjutsu. I can't trust him even if it's you." Deidara's words were not wrong, especially when it comes to things like seals. If you don't trust someone very much, it's impossible to easily let outsiders tamper with your body, because it may be something that will take your life. Scorpion tilted his head and said uncertainly, "But, you mean to let him learn seals? This will take a long time." Deidara shook his head and said, "I mean let him learn clay bombs from me. Only explosions are art, Naruto. That? I think I can try to learn seals." As soon as Naruto spoke, the two people who were about to quarrel stopped at the same time. Deidara said, "That. I'm not discouraging you. Things like seals can't be learned without some brain capacity." Naruto, Scorpion echoed. "Although I don't want to stand on his side, but in fact seals are really not simple." It's very complicated. I have to remember a lot of things." Naruto felt a little amused. His achievements in sealing, not to mention other things, were already unprecedented in the spiritual network and optimization of spiritual communication. Besides, there was also a chakra channel that was built with rune arrays to simulate the human body. He wasn't bragging, but he was definitely a master or even a grandmaster in sealing techniques. "Well, let's give it a try first. I think I'm pretty smart." Deidara shook his head and said in an extremely pessimistic tone, "I think it's more reliable for you to learn the clay bomb from me." Naruto was too lazy to pay attention to Deidara. In Deidara's mind, only his bombs were number one in the world. He turned to look at Scorpion. Scorpion hesitated for a moment. "Well, you can try to learn it first. If you can't learn it, then say you can't learn it." Deidara rolled his eyes and fiddled with the clay bomb in his hand. It was a small bird pecking his hand. What's the point of learning sealing techniques? It's just a waste of time. Naruto was enlightened and said with a smirk, "You don't believe I can learn it? Then do you want to make a bet?" Deidara's interest was piqued and he said with amusement, "Bet on what?" Naruto smiled with dimples on his mouse face. "Bet, if I learn it, you will be my human pet in the future." Deidara's face darkened, and the clay bomb in his hand instantly expanded and turned into a huge eagle. Deidara threatened, "Do you believe that I will let it take you to the sky and blow you up into fireworks?" Naruto wasn't scared and he replied firmly, "Do you dare to bet or not? Just say it, don't say useless things." Deidara was a little frantic. "I'll bet. If I win, you will be my pet. You are not allowed to talk back to me in the future." Scorpion wasn't afraid of things getting out of hand. He put away the lazy look on his face and solemnly promised Ming, "Just for this bet, I will definitely teach you." Naruto and Scorpion had reached a united front. Deidara was so angry that he waved his hand, and the clay bomb turned into a giant eagle and rose into the air. Deidara made a seal with one hand and shouted, "Ha!" Boom! The giant eagle exploded, and the ground trembled. Deidara was so angry that he couldn't control himself. In the spiritual network, Naruto contacted Big Fatty and said, "Big Fatty, how long did it take you to learn the basic knowledge of sealing techniques?" Big Fatty thought for a moment and replied, 3 days if it was short, 1 week if it was long." At that time, you gave me a week's task." Naruto nodded. "Oh, so, then if you were stupid for 2 weeks, would you have learned it?" Big Fatty said affirmatively. "If you were as stupid as Little Gunny, you would have learned it in 8 or 9 days." Little Gunny took 8 or 9 days. It seems like that's the case. While they were talking, the 4 ninjas of the Mist Village launched a bombardment at Naruto. It was a big net, and the 4 ninjas each pulled a corner and aimed at Naruto. Was it Dale's explosion that attracted them? Or was it an ambush? The giant net was about to fall on him. At this time, Sasori raised his hand and connected chakra to the net, and then with a sweep of his hand, he threw the net and the people directly. At this time, the leader of the ninjas said, "Who are you? This is the territory of the Mist Village. Do you want to be reasonable when you can't win?" Unfortunately, Sasori wasn't a reasonable person. Sasori didn't talk nonsense. He opened the scroll in his hand and directly summoned the Kazekage's puppet. The third wind shadow puppet made its move, and pitch-black iron sand shrouded the group of people. One of the 4 ninjas tried to use chakra to defend himself, but his body was penetrated by the iron sand and turned into a sieve. Magnet release, iron sand attack. Those who escaped were stunned and couldn't believe it. This is Magnet Release Kekkei Genkai? Is it the Kazekage-sama? Sama was a title for the strong. The Kazekage's puppet caused a strong visual impact to the 3 ninjas. Sasori still didn't pay attention, and the iron sand gathered into iron needles and scattered. Wait. Stop. You want to provoke a war between the 2 villages. Before he could say anything, the iron needles had already penetrated his body. From the beginning to the end, the ninjas of the Mist Village didn't have the power to fight back. With just the few of you, you can't cause a ninja war. Sasori said coolly. Then he raised his hand and the iron sand wrapped around one of the ninjas. Let me show you how to devour chakra to eat. Sasori grabbed the ninja's head, and then the ninja's body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. For a time, the blood mist rose, and the scene wasn't much better than eating people. Wait. Sasori eats people? The blood mist covered Sasori's body, and eventually drilled into his heart. Deidara looked at it and sighed. I don't know why I thought of that guy Haiden. Sasori looked at him and said, Don't compare me with that evil follower. Naruto said, Then can you eat living people directly? If you can, then can't Sasori replenish his energy while killing the enemy? Sasori shook his head and said, Eating living people is no problem, but eating is a very troublesome thing. It takes 10 seconds to prepare, and during this time you can't be disturbed, so, just in case, it's better to kill the enemy first, and it's more merciful. Chapter 364. 2 waves of mist ninjas were killed in the land of water. The mission can no longer be carried out in secret. Deidara sent the information through the Akatsuki's ring. Yahiko wanted to go back to the village and suspend the mission. Therefore, the 3 of them strolled out and strolled back. The whole process was equivalent to going out for a walk. What's even more ridiculous is that Sasori inexplicably lost a powerful puppet, Philyu. On the way back, Sasori sat cross-legged on the shoulder of the giant flying squirrel and repaired the broken Philyu. Naruto glanced at Sasori from time to time while rushing. He secretly watched how Sasori repaired the puppet. But soon he found that there was nothing to learn. In the end, Sasori couldn't help but say, That. I don't think it's necessary to repair it. Scorpion's hand paused for a moment before he defended Failyohu. Failyohu is still very strong. Naruto didn't care and said, Forget it. It'll break if you sit on it. Sasori. Sasori didn't know if he should say MMP or not. The 4-meter-high steel building in the Land of Rain was reduced to 2 meters by this pig. It's already good that his Philyu didn't break into pieces. Naruto continued. Also, your Philyu is also ugly. Not to mention its humpback, its face is also ugly. Sasori. Philyu is a puppet made to kill people. What's the use of being beautiful? Besides, the humpback is to make more space for him to hide inside. Sasori's chest was even tighter. But he can't lose his temper with a mouse who doesn't know what art is. Sasori replied. How's your sealing technique? Do you want me to ask you a few questions? It's only been 3 days since Naruto received the sealing technique education. According to Naruto's calculation, it's not yet time for him to learn it. Sasori replied. That. I haven't learned it yet. There are a lot of things that I don't understand, Sasori shouted. Then why don't you learn it? Well, it seems that Sasori is angry from embarrassment. But, did he really have to go that far? Wasn't he just mocking Faleohu's appearance? Faleohu was really ugly, wasn't he? Naruto stopped talking and Deidale said, Give up. You can't learn it. Just be my pet, and learn the clay bomb from me. Pet. Every time he heard this term, Naruto felt uncomfortable. He shouted back, Shut up. Human pet. The two of them began to quarrel. However, Naruto quickly shut his mouth, because two customers suddenly came to the shop. Naruto's spirit body returned to the blowfish's body. Blowfish. Go and flush the toilet. The customer is in a hurry to go to the toilet. Naruto woke up from his nap. When he raised his head, he was shocked. There were two people wearing Akatsuki's clothes. They were wearing bamboo hats, and their raincoats were still dripping wet with rainwater. Who was it? Haiden and Kakuzu? After waiting for several weeks, this guy finally came? Naruto was very excited. At this time, one of them raised his hand and took off his bamboo hat. Although I don't hate the rain, Tion's mood is also affected by the rain. After the bamboo hat was taken off, the face revealed was somewhat different from what Naruto had imagined. It was not the angle or Haiden, but Kisan Ghost Shark. Fuck. Kisan Ghost Shark also went to the brothel? Then the person beside him was not Itachi, right? Naruto looked over. That person was still wearing his bamboo hat, and had no intention of taking it off. Then was it Itachi or not? Naruto became curious. He contacted Sasuke through the spiritual network. Since Sasuke bound his identity card, he never took the initiative to look for Naruto. Naruto began to tease Sasuke from time to time, but Sasuke always ignored him. After a few times, Naruto was too lazy to chat with Sasuke. Sasuke, I saw your brother. Can you guess where I saw it? Usually Sasuke did not reply. His reply was either in or ah. Today, when he heard the news about Itachi, he finally made an exception and said a few more words. Where did you see him? Naruto replied in shock. In J Courtyard. Ah. In Orochimaru's base, Sasuke was petrified. After reacting, he replied coolly, Oh. Then he suddenly thought of something. Since you saw him in J Courtyard, then you were also there. You can rest assured that I won't tell Hinata. This time it was Naruto's turn to be stunned. He quickly explained. Don't talk nonsense. I went there to collect information. Sasuke replied coolly. As far as I know, Jiraiya often goes to that kind of place to collect information. Fuck. Why does it feel like the more I explain, the worse it gets? Sasuke replied coolly. Okay, don't bother me. If you bother me again, I'll tell Hinata that you were in J Courtyard. Sasuke's mouth. He doesn't believe what I said. Does he think I'm joking? Although Naruto has done this kind of thing in the past, this time he's telling the truth. Naruto sent the scene in front of him to Sasuke. Do you think this person is your brother? When Sasuke saw the person wearing a bamboo hat and a straw raincoat, although the bamboo hat was low and he could not see the person's face, his intuition told him that the person in front of him was the person he had been thinking about day and night. But he still stubbornly said, he won't go to that kind of place. Naruto replied, but he's there. Naruto shifted his gaze and sent a girl with heavy makeup or a pretty girl from a humble family into the picture. At this time, Sister Yao shouted, Blowfish, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and clear the sewer. Naruto still wanted to see the person's face, but work was necessary. But at this time Kisame said, is the sewer blocked? Then I'll do it myself. Move aside, I'm in a hurry. Saying so, he was about to walk into the toilet. Sister Yao quickly apologized. How can we let our honorable guest do this kind of thing? Let our people do it. Kisame replied, I'm not a guest, I just want to use the toilet. Sister Yao blocked the toilet door. Everyone who comes here is a guest. You must be tired after a day. Let the girls serve you well. Kisame was in a hurry. He just wanted to use the toilet. Fortunately, Naruto pulled Sister Yao away, and Kisame rushed into the toilet. Sister Yao was still a little dissatisfied. Why are you pulling me away? If he's not a guest, just kick him out. Motherf *Ker, kicking Kisame out. This is no different from suicide. Shaking off Naruto's pull, Sister Yao rushed toward the person suspected to be Uchiha Itachi. Then, what kind of service does this guest want? We have all kinds of girls here. The person suspected to be Itachi raised his head, and the low slanted bamboo hat lifted, revealing half of his face. He was very young, about 17 or 18 years old, a young man in his prime. I'm here to accompany that person to the toilet. Sister Yao glared at him. So you're not going to order anything? The boy nodded his head affirmatively. Sister Yao said, how can we not order any girls here? Why don't you take a look first? Then Sister Yao shouted, girls, whoever can make this guest stay will be heavily rewarded today. Then with a whoosh, a fragrant wind blew, and a group of butterflies swarmed over. This person was indeed Itachi. Naruto was very curious whether these girls could make Itachi stay or not. After all, the fragrance of these girls was very tempting. Chapter 365. However, to Naruto's disappointment, Itachi's will was surprisingly firm. He wasn't affected by the drug in the fragrance. After Kisame came out of the toilet, the two left. Girls, wait until I finish the task, I'll come to see you. This ambiguous and flirtatious reply was made by the ghost mermaid. Kisame was more than 2 meters tall, with a strong physique, and his physique alone attracted countless crazy bees and butterflies. Naruto stood in the corner and watched the two leave. The first time he saw Itachi, it was half a year ago. At that time, he and Jiraiya went out of the village to find Tsunade. Then he met these two guys in the land of Earth. 9 Llamas, Sensei, do you think I can defeat these two people now? Naruto connected the spiritual link. 9 Tails said suspiciously, that guy from the Uchiha clan? It shouldn't be a problem, right? 9 Tails didn't say anything. With Naruto's current spiritual strength, Naruto should be able to ignore the other party's genjutsu without using Manjikyu Sharingan. But if he uses Manjikyu Sharingan, it will be difficult. The eyes of the Uchiha clan are the most disgusting thing in the world in 9 Tails' heart. No, now there is also a Rinnegan. Thinking of Rinnegan, 9 Tails felt a sense of crisis. If Naruto encounters such an enemy in the future, then Naruto's current strength is really not enough. Or give Naruto some pointers? Let Naruto change to genjutsu? 9 Tails sniffed, and in the spiritual link, Naruto also shared the smell with him. He couldn't help but wonder, what's so fragrant? The fragrance was left by the girls, it was the smell of perfume. Naruto came back to his senses and said perfunctorily, it's nothing, I'm in the place where perfume is sold, that? I have something to do, so I'll cut off the connection first. Beep. Naruto cut off his mental link with 9 Tails. He didn't want 9 Tails to know where he worked. With 9 Tails' big mouth, who knew what kind of rumors would spread? After cutting off the spiritual link, Naruto fell into deep thought. Was he a match for Itachi now? Naruto was very clear in his heart that there was only one word to describe the situation. Suspense. Uchiha Itachi's Manjikyu Sharingan ability aside from Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, he also had a third Sharingan, Shirsui's Koto Amatsukami. That thing would be useless if it was hit. Thinking of this, Naruto remembered that he also seemed to have such an eye. It was Shirsui's eye that he snatched from Danzo. He had been keeping it on Danzo's arm, but he had never thought of how to use it. When Naruto found a corner to take a nap, Orochimaru took the initiative to contact him in the spiritual network. Sasuke has seen Itachi. Naruto asked curiously, what? Is your master-disciple relationship so good now? Are you starting to care about his physical and mental growth? Orochimaru replied, my thoughts just returned from Yakushi Kabuto when I saw that kid desperately slashing at the cliff. I think only that guy can affect him so much. This reasoning, Naruto gave him full marks. Ah, I guess so. I met Itachi when I was collecting information, so I took a screenshot and sent it to him. Orochimaru replied. Oh, as expected. The two fell into silence. Naruto felt that Orochimaru was acting strange today, so he took the initiative to ask, "Are you looking for me to ask about Sasuke?" Orochimaru replied, "Well, not really. I'm just asking casually. What I want to say is that I've taught Yakushi Kabuto all the technology related to androids. Yakushi Kabuto learned it well. The clone creatures that he has cultivated in the past few days are not much different from the original creatures. Cloning technology has finally broken through? This is really good news. This means that he can cultivate living arms for Gunny and the others. At the same time, it also means that his immortality technique is one step closer to being realized." Naruto was multitasking. At the same time, he contacted Yakushi Kabuto. "Has the cloning technology matured?" Yakushi Kabuto was observing the cloned fish in the culture tank. He replied, "It is indeed close to maturing. Orochimaru's technology is amazing, but there is still a problem. The cloned creatures can't live longer than the original creatures. The cloned creatures can't live longer than the original creatures. The limit of lifespan should be God's forbidden zone. It's not incomprehensible that it can't be broken through. After all, even the first Naruto and Rakuta Sannin have reached the end of their lifespan." Naruto pondered for a moment. "Let's cultivate living arms for Gunny and the others first. As for the lifespan of the clone creatures, if it can't be broken through in a short time, let's put it aside for now." After hanging up the call with Yakushi Kabuto, Naruto said to Orochimaru, "Then the next thing is the curse seal." Orochimaru said, "Curse seal? Are you planning to let me teach that guy Kabuto?" Naruto thought for a moment. "Well, teach it to him. By the way, I'll let another guy listen in. I've been very busy recently, so I don't have the time to learn." Orochimaru speculated, "You didn't sneak into the rain country, did you?" Naruto wasn't too surprised. He just told Orochimaru about his encounter with Itachi. Plus, Orochimaru was originally a member of the Akatsuki, so it wasn't too difficult to guess. "Well, you know about it?" Orochimaru said kindly. "Then you have to be careful. There are several troublesome existences in the rain country. Well, I can tell you some information. I don't know if you want to trade?" Naruto replied, "Who is it about? If it's about Rakutu pain, I don't need it. I know a guy from the Rendo who can read memories. If I'm touched by that guy, I'll most likely be exposed." This time, it was Orochimaru's turn to be surprised. "How do you know? Have you already met that guy?" Naruto pretended to be mysterious and said, "Don't worry about that. I'm curious. What do you want from me?" Orochimaru sighed helplessly. "You're really an unpredictable guy. I originally wanted to use this information to exchange the soul of my other hand in advance. You know, Sandaime-sama's technique has been bothering me for a long time. Now it's difficult for me to even sleep. If this continues, this body won't last long. Exchange the soul in advance. If I exchange the soul in advance, there will be nothing to restrict Orochimaru. So is Orochimaru trustworthy? No, there is no trust in Orochimaru at all. There is only a transaction between them." Naruto said helplessly. "Then there's no other way. The only interest that can be maintained between us is your hand. I hope you can understand." Orochimaru quickly replied, "No, it's not just one hand. I'm very interested in your idea of immortality. We can study it together." Naruto directly said, "You know, don't you? The lifespan of a clone can't live as long as the original body. So you transferred your idea to the study of a technique that can take over other people's bodies, using other people as a vessel, not a clone as a vessel." Orochimaru was stunned. "Kabuto told you?" Naruto ignored Orochimaru's question and continued. "From the beginning, you knew that it was impossible to achieve immortality by relying on cloning, because this is the old road you have taken, but you didn't say. Are you going to laugh at me? Or are you expecting me to create a miracle and break through the problem that you can't break through? I hope it's the latter, but the former is more likely. If that's the case, it's impossible for us to maintain our fragile business relationship without your hand." Orochimaru's underground base. The pain from his hand made Orochimaru's expression distorted. He hasn't had a good sleep for a long time. Every day he rests is controlled by drugs. Recently, this body's resistance to drugs is getting higher and higher. He believes that soon even drugs won't be able to make him sleep. So he must get back the soul of his other hand before that happens. Orochimaru gritted his teeth and replied, "You are too careless, your secret base is in the snow country, right?" Hearing this sentence, Naruto's face darkened, and killing intent surged in his eyes. Is this a threat? Naruto was a little surprised that Orochimaru could find the snow country. After all, there are various barriers in the Great Snow Mountain to prevent detection. So Naruto dared to let Orochimaru visit the Great Snow Mountain. But he didn't expect that Orochimaru would find it. The last thing I accept is threats. I have to say, you made a wrong move. You should have some patience and wait a little longer. Orochimaru replied, "Your base in the snow country is 1. Second, you are now sneaking into the rain country. Third, you are still alive. I will use these 3 pieces of information to exchange for my other arm. Do you want to trade? Rest assured, after the exchange, we can still trade normally. I will teach you the knowledge of the curse seal according to our agreement." Chapter 366. To trade or not to trade. Naruto tapped his fingers on his thigh. Making a deal with Orochimaru was a risky move, but it was something that had to be done sooner or later. The progress of cloning technology had reached a bottleneck, and it would take too long to make a breakthrough with Yakushi's pocket alone. So after Naruto met Sasuke and learned that Orochimaru was nearby, he thought of making a deal. Of course, there was another point. He wanted to pull Sasuke directly to his side, but he didn't expect that Sasuke would choose Orochimaru. His liver hurt. Naruto cursed inwardly. Sasuke was definitely a masochist. Since the content of the deal has been decided, it won't change. This is my principle. Naruto replied indifferently. Orochimaru asked incredulously, "Even if I pass the news of you to Wood Leaf and the Akatsuki, you won't change your mind?" Naruto said indifferently, "You can try, but so what if Wood Leaf knows that I'm alive? Send someone to kill me? Do you think I'm afraid? As for the Akatsuki, even if you tell them, they may not be able to find me. Even if they can find me, I have the ability to leave here. So your threat to me has no effect. On the contrary, to you. If you piss me off and destroy the soul in your hand, the damage to you will be irreparable." Orochimaru stopped talking and suddenly laughed after a while. "Don't be nervous, I'm just joking to ease the atmosphere." Joke? Unfortunately, this joke wasn't funny at all. At the very least, it proved that if possible, Orochimaru would bite back. Naruto separated part of his mind and contacted Dabi. Locate the location of Sasuke and Orochimaru. After receiving the order, Dabi pulled up the records with 5-star status. However, there was no exact location information on the map. It should be blocked by a barrier. So Dabi began to use the historical records. He found the place where Sasuke and Orochimaru last disappeared. In the Land of Rice. Looking further ahead, there were records of the Land of Fire and the Land of Water. All of them suddenly disappeared at the same place. Defei sent the information he had sorted out to Naruto. Seeing this information, Naruto fell into deep thought. Obviously, in order to prevent being tracked, Orochimaru used a space ninjutsu similar to reverse summoning every time he returned to the underground base. Otherwise, Orochimaru wouldn't have been able to escape from Wood Leaf and Akatsuki's pursuit. Interesting. Naruto was multitasking. While reading the information from Dabi, he said to Orochimaru, "Well, since it's a joke, then tell me, why are you so sure that my base is in the snow country?" Orochi replied, "About that. Are you asking if I'm right?" Guess. Naruto felt that communicating with Orochimaru was tiring. Was this guy some kind of genius? Or was it just a perfunctory reason? You're right. After all, there is indeed a small base in the snow country. Then can you tell me how you guessed it? Even if it's just a guess, there has to be some evidence, right? Orochimaru replied. Not long ago, I heard that there is a magical cinema in the snow country that allows people to immerse themselves in a movie. Coincidentally, the small card you gave me allowed me to watch that kind of movie, and the name of the movie matches the rumors I heard. F***ck. I didn't expect this to be the loophole. Naruto's mouth twitched. If he had known earlier, he would have banned Orochimaru's card authority. By the way, the learning area also has the Hyuga clan's taijutsu contributed by Hinata. Should I remove Orochimaru's authority? Originally, Naruto intended to develop Orochimaru as a potential customer. While hesitating, Naruto opened the Points Exchange Mall. He found that there were 2 more books in the Points Exchange Mall: Kekii Genkai Genetic Modification Technique and Kekii Genkai Cell Transplantation Technique. Signed, A Melancholy Snake. Puff, a melancholy snake. Was this name given by Orochimaru? Naruto was amused by Orochimaru. Kekii Genkai Genetic Modification Technique is worth 800 points. Kekii Genkai Cell Transplantation Technique is worth 500 points. Naruto looked at the signatures of the reviewer. It was Gurney and Kabuto. In other words, these 2 books were supervised by Gurney and approved by Kabuto after their value was reviewed by Kabuto. In the points exchange record, Kabuto bought them once. It seemed that Orochimaru had been integrated into his trading system. Naruto multitasked and said to Defei, "Send me a record of Orochimaru's points consumption." Then a list appeared in front of Naruto's eyes. Purchase of the Last Swordswoman, 10 points. Additional 200 points. Purchase of Wind and Cloud Princess 1, 10 points. Additional 100 points. Purchase of Wind and Cloud Princess 2, 10 points. Additional 100 points. Purchase of Chakra, 10 square meters, clone rental. What a tycoon. Orochimaru actually gave him a reward. However, Naruto saw a punishment as he looked down. Malicious exploration of the spiritual network system, 500 points. Note, minor incident. No damage caused. 1 warning. Orochimaru was indeed a restless guy. Well, since it's a joke, I'll let it go this time. Don't worry, after you teach Kabuto the curse seal, I'll return your hand to you. After hanging up the call with Orochimaru, Naruto's heart couldn't relax. If he returned Orochimaru's hand, would Orochimaru still honestly trade with him? The answer was no. Orochimaru was someone who could even kill his own sensei. However, why would such an unruly guy trade with Danzo? Could it be that Danzo used Kodo Amatsukami on Orochimaru? Thinking of this, Naruto's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Logically speaking, it was really possible. First of all, Danzo was a very suspicious person. It was very suspicious that he could let Orochimaru operate on him without worry. Second, even if there was a reason why Orochimaru didn't kill Naruto Sandaime, it wasn't sufficient. But if it was Kodo Amatsukami, everything would make sense. Naruto's brain quickly deduced, and the frequency of his fingers tapping on his thigh became even faster. But what about before Danzo transplanted Kodo Amatsukami? Who transplanted Kodo Amatsukami? Orochimaru? Or someone else? This wasn't the main point. Danzo was the existence who controlled the root, and he didn't lack trustworthy subordinates. Right. Why not summon Danzo and ask him? Naruto slapped his head. He had been smart all his life, but now he was stupid. Naruto found Gorny on the spiritual network. Gorny, help me revive someone. As soon as Gorny heard that Naruto was looking for her, she happily asked, I just heard Kabuto say that he has already grown our limbs, is that true? Kabuto, this big mouth. Originally, Naruto wanted to give the 3 girls a surprise. It's true, but why did Kabuto tell you everything? Gorny said proudly, I'm a natural beauty, I just needed to throw a wink at that silly boy. Naruto. Chapter 367. On the first floor of the Great Snow Mountain Research Institute, where Naruto once resurrected Haku, Naruto controlled Guni's body and used the blood extracted from Danzo's arm as a medium to resurrect Danzo. However, he never expected that the one who came out was first Naruto. Naruto checked the scroll that sealed first Naruto's soul and found that it had disappeared. Obviously, it had been summoned away by the Edo Tensei. Naruto looked at first Naruto, whose eyes were closed. Now that the Edo Tensei was successful, All that was left was to activate it. Should he activate first Naruto? Naruto hesitated. After all, the one in front of him was the god of ninja. However, it seemed that chatting with the god of ninja would be a good experience. With that thought in mind, Naruto controlled Guni and snapped his fingers. Snap! The seal was triggered, and first Naruto opened his eyes. After a brief hesitation, first Naruto looked at himself. He clenched his fists and then loosened them. What a weak body. It seems that I was summoned by Tobirama's technique again. Who summoned me this time? Little girl? First Naruto looked at Guni. To be honest, Guni's appearance was very fresh and refined. His chin was a bit sharp, and he had a standard oval face. His facial features were beautiful and charming. He had the face of a vixen that could be easily seduced at a glance. His body was curvy, and the only flaw was that he didn't have real legs. First Naruto's gaze fell on Guni's body, and he noticed that Guni's legs were fake at a glance. He raised his eyebrows and a trace of pity appeared on his face. Little girl, did you summon me? Little girl of course called Guni. However, the one who wanted to speak was Naruto. Naruto originally wanted to use Guni's body to directly communicate with first Naruto, but he felt that it was a bit awkward. He wasn't as open-minded as Orochimaru to be able to ignore gender. With a thought, he used Guru as a medium to project his own appearance. To be precise, it's me, the First Lord Naruto. Naruto's 3D projection was projected in front of the first Naruto. The first Naruto looked at the Naruto that was formed by interweaving rays of light with some surprise. Your main body isn't here? Was this a technique from the future? It looks interesting. Naruto bowed slightly and replied, due to some matters, my main body is unable to personally come. Please forgive me, first generation Naruto. When dealing with important figures, basic courtesy was still necessary. What was courtesy? It was all about face. Naruto's respectful attitude did indeed leave a good impression on the first Naruto. He smiled and said, you're much more likable than that guy Orochimaru. So how should I address you? Naruto didn't hide anything and introduced himself. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I used to be a villager of Woodleaf, but not anymore. The first Naruto suddenly realized. Oh, so you're a child of Woodleaf. Then can you tell me why you left the village? Naruto casually replied, because I wasn't happy in the village. This was also the truth. Following that, Naruto added, I'm human pillar force, my story is a bit long. The first Naruto looked around. Is there a chair? If you're not in a hurry, we can talk about it slowly. The first Naruto appeared to be very approachable, and didn't put on any airs. Naruto's impression of the first Naruto was quite good. With a thought, he used chakra's storage in the snowy mountain. Following that, a stone table and 3 stone chairs emerged from the ground. Indeed, there's no hurry. If first Naruto-sama is interested, I can tell you my story. The first Naruto and Naruto sat down. Naruto was just a projection, so it didn't make any difference to him whether he sat or not. However, he still sat down. To be precise, he changed the posture of the projection and moved his position. I'm Ninetales' human pillar force. If I want to tell you the story, I should go back a bit. Naruto organized his words and told the story from when Ninetales was controlled to destroy Woodleaf. Then he told the story to when he became the human pillar force. The villagers treated me as a monster and hated me, so I didn't have a good time in Woodleaf. There's also one more thing. After I researched some small things, the higher-ups of Woodleaf used the excuse that I was a Woodleaf ninja, and that it was Woodleaf who trained me. They used this as an excuse to monopolize my research results. The first Naruto nodded. It sounds like those people are indeed a little bad. Just a little bad? If it wasn't for the fact that he wasn't Naruto, the humiliation that those people gave him in his memory was enough for him to slaughter an entire village. By the way, I'm also your granddaughter's disciple. The first Naruto, who was originally calm, suddenly lost his composure and exclaimed, What? You're actually that girl's disciple? Then, don't tell me you also like to gamble? Naruto was speechless. What expression should he make now? However, it seemed like the first Naruto knew his granddaughter quite well. Seeing Naruto's speechless and confused expression, The first Naruto scratched his head like a big boy who had done something wrong. That girl, how is she now? Naruto reorganized his words. Not so good. Her brother died in the war, and then her lover died. The first Naruto seemed to have suffered a heavy psychological blow, and his entire person suddenly became extremely depressed. Naruto continued to unscrupulously complain. Also, the legends say that it was all because of you. The necklace that you passed down, these two people both wore it, and in the end, these two people who wanted to become Naruto both died. The first Naruto was even more depressed, and his entire person was like a withered eggplant. Naruto suddenly realized that attacking the first Naruto was quite interesting. After that, Master's Will was depressed, and she left Wood Leaf alone to wander outside for many years. The first Naruto's soul seemed to be about to leave his body. The huge blow caused him to become a withered eggplant that had been castrated. After that, you should know that the third Naruto and his disciple Orochimaru had a big fight, and the third Naruto used Shikifujin, so he died. Wood Leaf had no leader, so they continued to look for someone who could take on the responsibility. The first Naruto's eyelids twitched, and he hurriedly said, "It can't be. The person they were looking for was Tsunade, right?" Then Wood Leaf. The first Naruto panicked. With Tsunade's gambling addiction, Wood Leaf was finished. Naruto was surprised. Huh? You actually guessed it. That's right, the fifth Naruto is Tsunade. The first Hokage's whole body was soft on the table. He looked like a pile of meat without bones. His voice drifted, and he asked without any confidence, "Then Wood Leaf is now?" Naruto rolled his eyes. He had already told him about his tragic life, but the first Naruto was still thinking about Wood Leaf. And from the first Naruto's words, it seemed that he cared more about Wood Leaf's future than his own granddaughter. Tsunade didn't become Naruto for long, and then she ran away. The current sixth Naruto is someone else. The first Naruto was instantly revived, and he said in surprise, "It's true." Naruto didn't know what to say. He discovered that his thoughts and values were not in sync with the first Naruto's at all. He couldn't help but ask, "Don't you care about your granddaughter? Your granddaughter is now a rebellious ninja, and many people have their eyes on her." The first Naruto's expression became serious. He said solemnly, "Did she do something wrong?" Naruto shook his head. "In my opinion, she didn't. She used Edo Tensei to revive her lover, Duan, and then eloped with Duan." Naruto stared at the first Naruto, waiting for the first Naruto's reaction. Chapter 368. Naruto stared at the first Naruto, waiting for the first Naruto's reaction. Then 3 seconds passed, 5 seconds passed. Naruto's heart was in his throat, and he was inexplicably nervous. The first Naruto opened his mouth and said one word. "Oh." Naruto's mouth twitched. "What the hell are you O for? I want to hear your opinion, and you give me an O?" Naruto suppressed the madness in his heart and asked again, "What does O mean?" The first Naruto tilted his head in confusion. It means I know?" It seems there's nothing wrong with the answer. Naruto decided to ask directly, "Then what's your opinion?" The first Naruto scratched his head stupidly. "I'm already dead. What's the value of my opinion?" This is the standard act of throwing the blame to someone else. Naruto could only be more explicit. "But now you've been summoned back to this world by me, right? Those people want to capture your granddaughter. Don't you plan to do anything?" The first Naruto replied, "Well, I'm already dead, and I'm no longer Naruto. Well, so that? I don't think I need to participate in the capture. Well, that's it." Naruto's projection was unstable, and he almost died. The first Naruto was really not on the same channel as him. Naruto wanted to ask if he would help Tsunade. In the end, he replied that he would not participate in the capture. Then, in the first Naruto's mind, not participating in the capture was already the highest level of selfishness. This is definitely a pure and untainted saint. Naruto couldn't help but complain. "You already said that you're already dead, and you're no longer Naruto, so can't you help your granddaughter?" The first Naruto replied, "Well but she really did make a mistake, and she should be punished for her mistake." Naruto asked, "What did you do wrong?" Was it wrong to abandon Naruto and run away? Or use Edo Tensei? The first Naruto hesitated for a moment. Abandoning Naruto's position. I think she did the right thing. Then he muttered softly. Otherwise, what if Woodleaf loses everything? Naruto never looked at people with a perverted gaze, nor did he look at people through the crack of the door. But now, Naruto felt like he was looking at a ball of King holy light. It was golden and dazzling. Even more dazzling than his soul. If there is a Buddha in the world, then Senju Hashirama deserves it. I was wrong to use Edo reincarnation. I was against it when that guy from the dimensional realm developed it. I only allowed him to use it in the war. I've always felt guilty about it. Naruto couldn't help but ridicule. What's the difference between stabbing a knife into the enemy's body and strangling him with a rope? Which one is kinder than the other? The first Naruto replied seriously, both are wrong, so my dream is world peace. Naruto. Do you think you are Shueji-chan? Dream of world peace, Naruto roared in his heart. At the same time, he was too lazy to waste his breath with the first Naruto. But after thinking about it, he couldn't help but have another question in his heart. Then what do you think of a ninja whose hands are already stained with blood? Since killing is wrong, then a ninja is a heinous crime, right? After all, including you, there is no ninja who doesn't have blood on their hands, right? The first Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath, as if recalling something. Then he said, Ninja. The so-called ninja is a person who works hard to achieve goals. Different standpoints and different goals will create different ninjas. And in order to achieve goals, sometimes, even if you are deeply sinful, and your hands are stained with blood, you have to do it. If you don't understand, I can tell you a story about the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan. The story of the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan is the story of Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. Naruto was very clear about this story, and he didn't want to listen to it again. As for Hashirama's words, in order to achieve goals, sometimes even if you are deeply sinful, and your hands are stained with blood, you have to do it. Isn't it saying that if I don't go to hell, who will? He's really a living Buddha. By the way, many of Hashirama's ninjutsu are related to Buddhism. Is he also a Buddhist? Fighting Saint Buddha? Funny. Naruto admitted that his outlook on life was very different from the first Naruto's, so he decided not to talk nonsense. Well, in short, a ninja is a group of people who stand on different standpoints and have different pursuits, and for their ideals and truth, they are willing to sacrifice their lives. Hashirama nodded and praised. You understand very well. I believe it must be very easy for Tsunade to teach you. Easy. It's more than easy, Naruto waved his hand. But you know what? The Uchiha clan was destroyed, and the Uzumaki clan was also destroyed. The shinobi path and faith you pursued were all destroyed under the greed of human nature. It seems that all your efforts in the past were all in vain. By the way, the Senju clan is no longer a big clan like the Woodleaf clan, and only Sensei has any news, so. The Senju clan. After listening to this, Hashirama's body shook and he was in a trance. He murmured, the Uchiha clan was destroyed? What happened? Naruto didn't want to say much, but since he already said this, he was a little bit unhappy. So he told him about how Danzo forced the Uchiha clan to rebel. Danzo, that guy, transplanted the 10 eyes of the Uchiha clan into his arm, and then used the spiritual power of the Sharingan in your cells. I originally planned to summon Danzo to ask him something, but I didn't expect to summon you. Hashirama said. This person's style of doing things is very similar to Madara's. Too extreme. Alas. Naruto thought for a while. Danzo is also remarkable. After all, the conflict between the Woodleaf clan and the Uchiha clan was buried when the Uchiha clan established the security department. The security department is a job that offends people, but it was carried out by the Uchiha clan. Your brother's head is also full of holes. Speaking of Tobirama, Naruto had an idea. Why don't you summon Tobirama? Let the two of you get together. Thinking of doing it, Naruto arranged in the spiritual network, and soon the idle people from the Great Snow Mountain prison brought a prisoner to resurrect Tobirama. When Hashirama saw that Naruto was going to use a living person to cast the jutsu, He stopped him. Although I am dead now, and I am no longer Naruto, I still can't watch you trample on people's lives like this. Naruto laughed. You want to stop me? In my position, all of these people deserve to die. Even if they don't use the Edo Tensei, they will be executed. Hashirama frowned. What did these people do wrong? Naruto laughed. Driven by interests, they came from all over the world to steal my research results. What? Doesn't the Woodleaf clan give death penalty to intruders? Chapter 369. Woodleaf won't kill innocent ninjas who surrender. Hashirama's gaze was firm. Naruto turned his head and unlocked the curse seal on the person who was frozen by the bondage curse seal. He asked, Are you willing to surrender? The ninja spoke. I am willing. Fuck. What a smooth answer. Naruto's mouth twitched. Then tell me who hired you. The ninja quickly replied. It's Kumogakure. Naruto rolled his eyes. The fluctuation of soul power proves that you're lying. Naruto was too lazy to argue with the guy on the ground, so he turned to first Naruto and said, Does this count as surrendering in Woodleaf? The moment Naruto turned his head, the ninja who was released from the binding seal suddenly attacked Guni. The wind attribute chakra changed its nature and stabbed towards Guni's heart. It seemed that he wanted to drag someone down with him before he died. Naruto saw it. After all, the scene in front of him was transmitted to Naruto through a perception barrier. But Naruto didn't care. Guni glanced at the ninja, and the ninja's body was frozen. The binding seal reappeared all over the ninja's body. It wasn't just cast, but there had always been a binding seal on the ninja's body. Naruto's setting was that anyone with 4-star authorization or above could bind him. Of course, Naruto's temporary 1-star account was full of privileges. You see, he's just a wolf cub that can't be tamed, and you want to reform him? Naruto didn't say anything. Naruto tidied up the ninja's appearance and praised. You didn't disgrace your identity as a ninja, so you can go on your way with glory. Naruto controlled Guni's body to cast a binding seal. He directly used Naruto's soul as the summoning medium. At the same time, Naruto was also on guard against first Naruto causing trouble. First generation Naruto formed hand seals. It was the origin Edo reincarnation removal technique. However, nothing happened after he used it. First generation Naruto was surprised. You actually changed the Edo reincarnation incantation seal? Naruto smiled and said, Equal to 10 doesn't necessarily mean 5 plus 5, nor does it necessarily mean 4 plus 6. Ninjutsu is the same. If you understand the fundamental rules, 9 plus 1 can also be used successfully. That's right, this technique doesn't just change the technique. There's also... Naruto chuckled and snapped his fingers. There was no such seal in snapping fingers ninjutsu, but it was in line with Naruto's setting. After that, first Naruto's chest began to bulge. It was bulging. Was there something wrong with it? I originally wanted to use this to tease Danzo, but now I'll let you experience it for free. The first generation Naruto was horrified. He touched his upper body in shock. So soft, so comfortable. But it would be different if this thing was on his body. It was F***king horrifying. What is this? First generation Naruto exclaimed, and then touched the area between his legs. Well, the balls are gone, and the stick is gone. Instead, it was replaced by a crack of lightning. First generation Naruto's face turned red and green. Shock, shame, and all kinds of complicated expressions appeared on his face. You, what did you do to me? The god of shinobi suddenly became shy like a little girl. This scene was beautiful. Naruto smirked and said, It's nothing. Edo reincarnation is a female ninja with a great figure, so, your current figure is also great. This is my improvement of Edo reincarnation. It can integrate the characteristics of the Jinchuriki and the summoner. If you like, I can also change your face, but it's more or less interesting. Hee, wait a moment, I'll summon your younger brother. You and I want to know if your cool and silly younger brother will laugh like crazy when he sees your female appearance. While talking, Naruto began to arrange Edo reincarnation. How could Hashirama let Naruto do as he wished? Chuck suddenly burst out. A terrifying pressure swept in all directions. For a moment, the ground of the snowy mountain shook violently, and Gunny's face turned pale. The title of God of Shinobi was definitely not self-proclaimed. You dare. Hashirama glared at Naruto. Naruto was only a projection. After Gunny's physical condition was affected, the projection went into a daze and directly went out. But at the same time, a rune lit up on the roof of the laboratory on the first floor of the snowy mountain. And then Naruto's projection appeared again. Gunny's line was blocked, so Naruto switched to another one. He wasn't affected at all. Why wouldn't I dare? Naruto laughed heartily. The next moment, first-generation Naruto's aura and Chakra's violent aura instantly disappeared. Hashirama was stunned. Naruto explained. It seems that the energy in first-generation cells has been exhausted. But to be able to erupt with such power with just a few drops of blood. The body of a sage is indeed terrifying. First-generation Naruto tried to use chakra again, but found that he couldn't fuse with chakra normally. He looked up at Naruto. Is this also your doing? Naruto smiled. It's nothing powerful. It's just a rune that can cut off the connection between your spiritual power and your body. Of course, it's not completely cut off, but it can't fuse with chakra. As for what you just released, it's first-generation cells that aren't under your control. First-generation Naruto stared at Naruto. After 3 seconds, he suddenly admitted defeat. That? Tsunade's disciple. Can you see if I can change my body back? If Tobirama sees me like this, I won't have the face to see anyone anymore. Admit defeat? Naruto felt a bit emotional. Only those with bigger fists had the right to speak. Then he smiled mischievously, ignored first-generation Naruto who was in despair, and re-established the connection with Gunny. Edo Tensei. The reincarnation rune formation swam on the ground, summoning medium Naruto's soul and vessel to establish a connection with the formation. After the formation's preparation stage was completed, Naruto made a hand seal. His soul and body fused together, and the ashes floating in the air gathered towards the sacrifice. In the blink of an eye, it changed into first-generation Naruto's appearance. First-generation Naruto stared at Naruto's hand seal. Then he said happily, "You're too careless. You actually used this technique in front of me." Saying so, he used the rune in reverse again, intending to dispel Edo Tensei. But still nothing happened. First-generation Naruto couldn't use the physical strength of this body, but there was still power left in his cells. First-generation Naruto thought that if he squeezed it out, it should be enough to dispel the ninjutsu, but chakra had it, but the technique failed. What's going on? I already dispelled the ninjutsu according to your method. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, "Can you not be so naive? If my ninjutsu could be learned by you like this, would I still use it in front of you?" Naruto's ninjutsu, including the improved summoning technique, all had part of the hand seal integrated into the rune formation, which needed to be triggered. However, Naruto wouldn't tell first-generation Naruto, because in Naruto's opinion, only an idiot would introduce his ninjutsu to someone else. Let's talk again. How about, I help you save my granddaughter? Don't worry with me around, I won't let Wood Leaf touch her. Naruto smiled and said, What about your principles? Hashirama said seriously, I'm no longer Naruto and I'm already dead. What a shameless reply. But Naruto liked it. But if he gave up the pleasure of seeking death because of such a thing, would he still be Naruto? He hadn't sought death for a long time, and Naruto's heart was itching. Snap. Gunny snapped his fingers. Then, second-generation Naruto slowly opened his eyes. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.